call this meeting to order. Thank you all for coming out on this chilly night. Before we start this meeting, I do want to acknowledge our fantastic facilities crew, transportation department for getting our school and school grounds ready for today and tomorrow. So I was gonna give them a shout out. All right, pursuant to the Open Meeting Act, Chapter 231, PL 1975, adequate notice as defined by Section 3D of Chapter 231, PL 1975 has been made by regular mail or email on the 11th day of January 2026 from the Board of Education offices maintained at 1014 Route 601, Skillman, New Jersey, to the following: the Courier News, Montgomery Township Clerk, and the Rocky Hill Borough Clerk. The Board reserves the right to enter into executive session during all meetings of the Board of Education. It is the school board's intention to conclude this meeting no later than 9 p.m. Roll call, please, Mr. Kelly.
Dr. Wang, Steffer here, Spina,
Present.
Mr. Becker Herman, Ms. Warland,
Present.
Ms. Harris, Mr. Nunez, present, Ms. Norgan,
Present.
Mr. Todd.
Present.
Thank you.
We have a quorum. Please rise as we salute the flag. To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We do not have our student representative in attendance tonight, so we'll move right to superintendent reports and presentation. Superintendent Mabata.
Good evening, everyone. I'll keep my comments short because we have a lot of presentations tonight, but I just want to echo what President Todd said, and thank you to everyone. All of our facilities crew, our transportation crew, all of our staff, for shoveling themselves out and getting in today to make it a nice, healthy, warm day for the kids. More snow ahead in the forecast, but we're taking it day by day. And thank you everyone for all of your patience with all of the snow days and delayed openings. And please pay mind to the district calendar. We used our second emergency contingency day, so moving forward, we will be going into spring break. Tonight is a very special night. As you can see, we even have refreshments. And it's to celebrate our Governor Educators of the Year. The New Jersey Department of Education recognizes the outstanding contributions of teachers, educational service professionals, and leaders through various national and state programs each year. These honored educators serve as spokespersons and ambassadors for the profession, who are encouraged to help shape New Jersey educational policies and practices that influence their schools and classrooms. Tonight we honor our Montgomery Township School District Governor Educators of the Year for 2026. So I'm going to begin with Mr. Dan Van Heist, who's the principal at Orchard Hill Elementary School, to present to us his Educators of the Year.
Don't need this on anymore, I forgot. Hi, good evening everybody, board members, Superintendent McLaughlin, everybody out in the audience. I am very excited to be here tonight to honor a couple of amazing staff members from our Early Childhood Center. They both have in common our pre-K building, so very excited to nod towards our ECC tonight. Krista Alessandri, Montgomery alum and preschool teacher extraordinaire, has taught with us here for the last 5 years. All 5 of those years, she has brought the energy for, if you're going to teach preschool, you better have a battery that never reaches empty. You drop by her room and she, her amazing paraprofessional of 4.5 years, Miss Ritchie, and her students are always in the middle of something. As you can imagine, there's not much downtime in their world because, and you can nod with me, downtime with 3 and 4-year-olds spells trouble. She also brings the creativity. Her nominations speak to her unwavering commitment to student engagement through creative, hands-on instructional activities that all of our ECC Cubs benefit from. Ms. Alessandri frequently thinks outside the box to meet the needs of students in her class and can always be counted on to integrate social-emotional learning into her teaching through the use of consistent language tied to expectations, emotions, and following Orchard Hill's Cub core values. Her classroom chill zone is the perfect example of this, as students of such a young age know how and when to use it appropriately to help them take a needed breath and reset. Ms. Alessandri takes on additional leadership roles within the school, formally serving as the preschool's team leader, but also taking it upon herself to help coordinate special events such as the ECC's Fall Fest and our school-wide Autism Acceptance Month. Krista, a big thank you for coming with positive vibes and 100% in the tank every single day. It's with a great enthusiasm that Orchard Hill names you our Governor's Educator of the Year. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Oops, sorry. I'm sorry, I was supposed to give.
That's it. Everybody give your best smile.
Thank you.
I realized halfway through that some years we've done having the recipient come stand next to us. Apparently I started without that this year, so other principals, if you want to change that up on me, that's okay with me. Next, Jen Rogers, school social worker, is a longtime Orchard Hill staff member, spending the past 26 years here supporting our students and families. Her nominations highlight her advocacy for student well-being and growth, as well as her dedication to the Montgomery community throughout her tenure in the district. Ms. Rogers works closely with parents to ensure that they understand many of the educational and legal parameters that guide special education in the state of New Jersey. Her approach is always truthful and consistent, and she strives for collaborative partnerships across the board. Having recently worked out of our Early Childhood Center, Jen has served as a leader and guide to families and staff from the ECC. In addition to her daily responsibilities, school administration counts on her knowledge and expertise when it comes to important programming decisions involving our preschool cubs, as well as some of the logistical challenges that arise when navigating multiple buildings on one campus. When we shifted to a full-day kindergarten program and moved our preschoolers next door to the ECC, one of the factors we did not need to worry about was who was going to lead over there. Jen has the respect of her colleagues and has played a large role in the warm and playful culture that is felt inside our ECC on a daily basis. Jen, we thank you for your years of service to the Montgomery community, your ability to do your job with devotion and class, and we congratulate you on being named this year's Orchard Hill Educational Service Professional of the Year. All right, and I'm sensing that we're going to go up the grades here. We'll turn things over to Miss Susan Lacey from Village.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Mary. Good evening, board members, community members, and guests who are here this evening. I am very excited to recognize the two Educators of the Year at Village Elementary School. Having been here 26 years, I have seen them grow into the amazing people that they are, having known them since they first got to this district, and still being able to work with them now has really been a pleasure for me. So first, I would like to introduce Valerie Hum. You could choose to come up here, stay there, wait, whatever your choice, Val. Come on. So I'm proud to speak to you about Miss Valerie Hum, Village Elementary School's Teacher of the Year. For 22 years, Valerie has served the students and families of Montgomery Township with unwavering dedication, extraordinary skill, and a heart for teaching that inspires everyone around her. Over the years, Valerie has excelled in her role as a fourth grade teacher, having served the needs of both special education and general education students. As a thoughtful and reflective learner, she is constantly seeking new ways to reach young learners. Universal design for learning principles and small group instruction are seamlessly incorporated in her classroom, and her math workshop model is a master class in engagement and differentiation. Valerie is deeply committed to her students' personal growth, and she creates a learning environment where every learner feels valued, supported, and capable of success. Valerie's expertise extends well beyond her classroom. As a trusted expert in the teaching of mathematics, she plays a meaningful role alongside supervisors in curriculum development, using her deep knowledge of the standards, educational research, and best practices to support high-quality instruction. She is also a resource for colleagues on the use of digital platforms and has led professional development on effective technology integration. Her leadership and compassion also have a profound impact on Village School and the wider community. For 9 years, she has served as a peer partner advisor. Those are our fourth grade leaders who help spread the word of kindness and community service. And she's developed those student leaders to promote our pillars of character and coordinate all of our community initiatives. This includes supporting this year's 31st annual Young Scholars Institute Holiday Drive, an effort that brings the entire school community together to support program participants who are in Mercer County. In every space she enters, Valerie makes our school stronger, kinder, and better. Valerie is the teacher colleagues appreciate, students adore, and families trust. She is innovative, generous with her time and knowledge, and endlessly committed to learning and growing. She embodies the very best of what it means to be an educator. Mrs. Hardorn, who is a teaching partner of hers, they share about 46 kids or so. She helped me survey your students, and they think you're great because, and there were a lot of comments, I'm going to summarize some key ideas. They think you're great because she teaches in a way that is easy to understand. Her lessons truly stick in our minds. She is kind, patient, and always willing to explain things step by step, sometimes more than once, so no one feels left behind. She makes learning fun, which was the most common thing that we heard. Most importantly, she encourages us, builds our confidence, and helps us believe in ourselves. Here are the reasons they believe you deserve to be the Teacher of the Year. She just does. That was the biggest. She is really smart, kind, respectful, caring, focused, and very funny. She is an epic teacher, nice and amazing, with 7,000 exclamation marks. She treats us fair and square. She has guided us through all our learning experiences and has been a friendly presence in our lives. She takes good care of everyone and always looks out for us, especially if we are stuck on a question. She's just fun to be with. She helps people like the peer partners, and she helps with our supply drives that help the community. She is a dedicated and inspiring teacher. Valerie, on behalf of your students and your Village School family, I am excited to recognize you as our Governor's Teacher of the Year. Our next recipient is Mrs. Lauren Furnell. It is with great pleasure that I recognize Mrs. Lauren Furnell, Village School's Educational Services Professional of the Year. Lauren is a highly respected school counselor and advocate for children, and she has served at Village School for the past 20 years. Thoughtful and wise, Lauren brings compassion and purpose to her work. Her dedication and commitment to supporting the growth and well-being of every student has had a positive and lasting impact on our school and district community. She collaboratively facilitates a truly exceptional counseling program with her counseling partner, Jolene Schatz, at VES, and effortlessly builds rapport to ensure that every child feels safe, comfortable, and accepted. Students trust her deeply because she knows how to give them exactly what they need. whether it's a listening ear, tools to build their confidence, or activities to help navigate friendships and social situations. Lauren consults regularly with all members of our school community. She asks essential questions, collects academic and performance data, and ensures that student supports are developed with the team. Lauren's leadership is far-reaching. In her role as an anti-bullying specialist, she creates student, staff, and parent volunteer training programs to build and maintain a positive school climate. She leads the School Safety and Climate Committee and serves on the School Safety Care Team and Attendance Committee. She has previously served on leadership teams and the District Strategic Planning Committee. She designed Mindful Moments, a series of mindful activities for teachers and their students. She has also facilitated professional development and co-hosted parent education events with members of the counseling department. A model for creativity and innovation, Lauren developed an emotional regulation toolbox for students, a resource she hopes to publish, and she designed the Bluebird Buddies curriculum, which empowered students to serve as peer mediators during recess. Lauren's commitment to the social, emotional, and academic success of every child and her contributions to our school community over the years are impressive, impactful, and very much appreciated by families, and especially her students, who say, "She is cool and she is funny." I love when I come into her room. She always gives me a warm, nice greeting and asks about my life. She is the sweetest. I feel like I can tell her anything. She is open and kind. She really cares about our feelings. I love how completely honest she is, and if we disagree, she respects me and my opinion. She is so kind and she makes my day a lot. And I do want to say, anytime I'm in a meeting with Lauren and she's talking to parents and talking to kids, I always say to her, like, that was exquisite. Like, she doesn't leave a stone left unturned, and everybody feels really well taken care of, and she comes up with the best solutions that kids and families need. So on behalf of the Village School family, thank you, Lauren, for always making our day. We are excited to recognize you as our Educational Service Professional of the Year.
Corey, why don't you come up too? Mr. Delgado. It's your department too.
In summer.
All right, you get, wait, come back. Let's get a better one. He's taller than me. Let's go.
And so now I'll pass it on to Lisa Romano, principal of the Lower Middle School.
Good evening, everybody. It is with great pride and heartfelt conviction that we recognize Ms. Jen Romano as our Teacher of the Year. For 20 years, Jen has served the Montgomery Township School District with extraordinary dedication, compassion, and professional excellence. She is a deeply respected and beloved member of our school community, cherished by students, families, and colleagues alike, and her impact on our culture is both profound and enduring. As a special education teacher, Jen's belief in her students is unwavering. Through her expertise and quiet persistence, Jen empowers students to find their voice, develop independence, and take pride in who they are as learners and as people. Jen's influence extends far beyond her classroom. She is a tireless advocate for inclusion and belonging and a leader in our Unified Schools efforts. Through initiatives such as Unified Homeroom, Unified After School Club, Reverse Inclusion, and Special Olympics, Jen and her team of teachers have helped remove barriers, shift mindsets, and build authentic connections among students of all abilities. Following a safety care training Jen facilitated last year, a veteran teacher of over 25 years wrote the following email to her. Just wanted to say thank you for yesterday's training. You did a great job. Very thorough and informative. I know we haven't worked together much over the years, but I was so impressed with your knowledge and experience. I have always had much respect for the work you and others do daily for our students. My admiration and genuine respect for your expertise and professionalism is only greater after yesterday. Thank you so much for all you do. Have a great weekend. You know, U2 has a famous song entitled Angel of Harlem, a tribute to Billie Holiday that reflects how, despite the many challenges in her life, what she gave to the world through her art made everyone's lives better. In that same vein, at LMS, Jen extends grace to every student, every colleague, and every community member she encounters. In every interaction, she conveys that her relationship with you truly matters to her, and that she feels genuinely grateful to know you. This is why, time and time again, as I stand outside watching the buses pull away, carrying our students back to their safe and welcoming homes, I see one of Jen's students place one foot on the steps of the bus, pause, twist around, jump down, and run back into Jen's arms for one last embrace, seeking to reconnect with that sense of grace for one more heartwarming time before heading home. This is why at LMS, Jen Romano is our angel of lower middle school. To call her an outstanding teacher is simply not enough. Jen is a rare and remarkable force for good, and her life's work truly changes lives. It is without surprise and with great admiration that all of us at LMS and our Montgomery Township community recognize Jen Romano as our 2025-2026 Teacher of the Year. Okay, now, moving right along to recognizing our astute Educational Services Professional of the Year, Mr. Kevin Armstrong. For 22 years, our district has been extraordinarily fortunate to call Kevin one of our own. Kevin began his career as a social studies teacher at Upper Middle School, where he quickly became known for his professionalism, dedication, and ability to connect meaningfully with young people. For the past 15 years, Montgomery Lower Middle School has had the tremendous privilege of having Kevin serve as both our guidance counselor and our anti-bullying specialist, roles in which he continues to shine with exceptional skill, compassion, and integrity. Time and time again, our team looks to Kevin as a model. We often ask ourselves, what would Kevin do? As we guide students back to class after a challenging moment, we draw on Kevin's example, how he restores calm, how he reinforces student agency, and how he ensures each child returns to class feeling in control and ready to move forward with their day. In his role as anti-bullying specialist, Kevin demonstrates tremendous poise and empathy. He supports students through difficult reflections, particularly when they're processing mistakes that can feel overwhelming. With great foresight, Kevin prepares students for the moment they return to class, coaching them on what they might say if a peer asks, "Where were you?" or "Why were you in the office?" This thoughtful guidance protects the students' dignity while empowering them to take ownership of their actions. In this way, Kevin turns every misstep into a learning opportunity, ensuring that students see themselves not through the lens of a mistake, but through the possibilities of who they can become. Kevin is also a vital leader on our MTSS team. In addition to his deep understanding of how students learn and grow, Kevin recognizes the importance of joy, shared experiences, and lasting memories in a child's school journey. And he leads the planning of meaningful school-wide events such as Ed Camps, Spirit Weeks, and the Week of Respect. Kevin serves as a steady and trusted bridge between home and school. He communicates with families with empathy, clarity, and professionalism. Parents consistently express gratitude for Kevin's guidance and the comfort they feel knowing he is supporting their child. Within our school community, Kevin is truly a pillar. He is a stabilizing force that elevates the entire climate of LMS. Kevin is a committed professional of the highest caliber, demonstrating, ready for this, in part by his perfect attendance record last year. Kevin consistently shows up. He's ready to serve, ready to listen, and ready to give the very best of himself. to our students and staff and community. And so it is with great admiration that all of us at LMS and our Montgomery Township community honor Kevin Armstrong as the 2025-2026 LMS Educational Services Professional of the Year.
I got it, Lisa. It's good.
And now, Mr. Mark Carney, UMS.
Thank you. Good evening, Superintendent McLaughlin, Board of Education, guests, and our honorees. It is with great enthusiasm that I stand here at this podium to introduce the rock star of UMS, Mr. Drew DeSisto. It is with great pride that I get to announce him as our Teacher of the Year from UMS, because he was my first hire as an administrator in our building. Mr. Drew DeSisto has been a world history teacher at UMS since September 2022. From the moment he arrived, he brought that special UMS magic right into his classroom and our school community. Mr. DeSisto is widely known for his engaging lessons, dynamic lessons, things that are bringing world history to life for our 7th graders, which is not very easy. We are competing with big things like TikTok and Instagram, but he does it. Whether through escape the room style challenges in class or sometimes in the stairwell art museums or other creative learning experiences. He takes this work and ensures our students are engaged in the history, they see the themes and the trends that various cultures have gone through, and help them understand their role in our current standing. Beyond his work in the classroom, Mr. DeSisto has quickly become an essential contributor to many school activities. He plays a key role in our RISE mentoring program. He regularly will risk his life to chaperone middle school dances. Not an easy task, but he is there, and he is there guiding our traffic at night, keeping everybody safe to ensure everyone returns home safely. And for that, I thank you. He supports our athletic programs by coaching cross country and taking over the intramural flag football team. Mr. DeSisto shows unwavering commitment to his students by cheering them on inside of school and outside of school. He is there at their performances. He is there at every game. He is there at our after-school events. His dedication and enthusiasm and genuine care only add to the amazing community that UMS is. When I spoke with some of his students that nominated him, to sum it up, they said, when you walk into Mr. DeSisto's room, you know that you matter. And for all of you, you know that's what counts at UMS. So it is with great pride that I introduce Mr. Drew DeSisto as our Teacher of the Year. It is also with great enthusiasm that I get to announce our Educational Support Personnel of the Year. Unfortunately, she is not able to be here tonight, but I would like all those UMS families that use the parent drop-off and parent pickup to give a big congratulations to Miss Sandy Ajamian, the paraprofessional of UMS, who was awarded Educator Support Personnel of the Year. All right, now I'm going to pass it over to our high school principal, Ms. Heather Pino-Beatty.
Good evening, everyone, and congratulations to all of our honorees tonight. So the question is, do I make them stand next to me or not? I guess the better question is, do I want to go to work tomorrow and not have flat tires? So I'm going to start with our Governor's Educator of the Year, and it is with great admiration and profound pride that I am honored to introduce Ms. Jane Huebner, our chemistry teacher at Montgomery High School since 2010. Since joining our community, Jane has been a driving force in helping students discover the excitement of learning, guiding them not only to understand chemistry, but also to grow into confident, curious, and capable individuals. She brings an extraordinary blend of knowledge, creativity, and empathy to her teaching. Her lessons are thoughtfully designed, deeply rooted in pedagogy, and tailored to student interests. They strike the critical balance where engagement meets meaningful learning, creating experiences that students remember long after they leave the classroom. Jane is a firm believer in inquiry-based learning, encouraging students to ask questions, explore ideas, and take ownership of their discoveries. She sets high standards for every student while ensuring those expectations are achievable, helping each learner succeed and feel capable. She has the rare ability to find the good and the beauty in every moment, every experiment, and every student, helping them see themselves as capable and valued. One of Jane's signature lessons is the famous Combustion Lab, where students explore chemical reactions that literally and figuratively ignite their love of learning. In a moment of wonder and discovery where curiosity, critical thinking, and joy come together, Jane even allows me to participate each year. I need to admit to all of you, I am her most challenging student. And Jane, I'm sorry that I break the test tubes every year. These labs are more than demonstrations. They are carefully designed experiences that spark imagination, reinforce scientific principles, and leave students inspired, energized, and excited about the possibilities of learning. Jane's impact reaches far beyond the classroom. She takes a genuine interest in her students as individuals, attending extracurricular events, supporting clubs, and celebrating their successes in every aspect of school life. Students often return to her years after leaving the classroom, sharing how her encouragement, belief in them, and mentorship have shaped who they've become. She nurtures confidence, curiosity, and resilience, making every student feel seen, respected, and capable of reaching their full potential. Jane is also a mentor to her colleagues, always stepping up to share her expertise, offer guidance, and create opportunities for professional growth. She models excellence in teaching while fostering collaborative environments where educators feel supported, inspired, and encouraged to grow together. Her influence also extends beyond our school walls. She's an engaged member of our broader community, using her knowledge, passion, and creativity to make a positive impact wherever she can in Montgomery and beyond. She brings the same care and dedication she shows her students to every interaction outside the classroom, inspiring learning, curiosity, and connection among all who have had the privilege to work with her and know her. Jane's dedication, passion, and intellect have touched the lives of countless students and colleagues. Her lessons ignite curiosity, her mentorship creates confidence, and her belief in every student inspires them to reach higher. Her work reflects the very best of education, and it's a privilege to celebrate the extraordinary difference she makes every day. Jane. I really do break all the test tubes. It's embarrassing. Now it's my greatest honor to introduce Dr. Stacy Delbridge, the MHS Governor's Educational Services Professional of the Year. Since joining Montgomery High School, our community, in 2002, Dr. Delbridge has been a steady source of strength, compassion, and expertise for our students and staff. As the co-creator and district-wide clinical coordinator of STAR, she has redefined the way we approach student well-being. The program reflects her belief in the power of connection, emotional awareness, and supportive relationship, and it continues to influence the way we care for students every day. Dr. Delbridge's professional foundation is impressive. Her years on the child study team and her specialized training in cognitive behavioral therapy, trauma-informed care, dialectical behavior therapy, and crisis response give her a rare depth of knowledge. She partners closely with staff to elevate student needs, offers thoughtful psychoeducation tailored to individual situations, and leads meaningful professional learning across the building and district. Colleagues consistently look to her for clarity, guidance, and sound judgment, which speaks to the trust she has built in every corner of our community. What makes Stacy extraordinary extends far beyond her credentials. Her impact lives in the countless conversations, quiet moments, and thoughtful interventions she has offered over more than 20 years. She has long been a champion for strengthening mental health supports in our schools, well before these conversations became as prominent as they are today. Her work through both the Child Study Team and STAR reflects a commitment to ensuring that every student feels valued, heard, and supported as they navigate their challenges and their greatest joys. One of Stacy's greatest gifts is her ability to build meaningful relationships with students from every walk of life. She creates spaces where students feel seen and understood, no matter of their background or lived experience. Because of the trust she builds, students return to her year after year, long after graduation. They come back to share their accomplishments, their struggles, and the ways in which her guidance has shaped who they are becoming. These relationships are living proof of the depth of her influence and the lasting imprint she leaves on the young people she supports. Her impact reaches adults as profoundly as it reaches students. Stacy has helped shape the growth of so many colleagues by modeling compassion, steady leadership, and a genuine respect for the people around her. I can say personally, and with full support of many others, that she has played an essential role in my development as a leader as well. Her thoughtful perspective and her generosity have helped guide how we care for students and how we show up for one another. She literally has helped build the foundation of every classroom in our building. Dr. Delbridge's contributions have changed the landscape of our community in ways that will resonate long into the future. Her ability to build trusting relationships with young people, paired with her commitment to creating spaces where students feel safe and supported, have shaped STAR into a vital resource and a defining part of our school. She has strengthened the systems around us, improved the culture within our walls, and has made a profound difference in the lives of so many. This recognition is both overdue and incredibly well-deserved. And now I present to you Dr. Stacy Delbridge.
That concludes this presentation. So we're going to take about a 15-minute break to enjoy and celebrate our Educators of the Year and enjoy some refreshments. Our next presentation tonight is from our board attorney, Mr. Vic Lapira. He's going to be doing board training on HIV.
All right, thank you very much. I don't know if I can follow that act where we got to hear lots of great teachers and great educational support professionals, but I will do my best, starting off in a weird way. But so we're going to talk about, once we get the presentation back up, we're going to talk about the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act, HIB, kind of what you need to know. Not only as board members, we have public here too, so that's great. So what we'll talk about is I've been doing this presentation or some form of it probably for, I don't know, 15, 16 years or so. And as the years go on, there are more cases decided by the Commissioner of Education, sometimes by the Appellate Division. So we get more information about what it means when we talk about HIB, what is HIB, what isn't. Oftentimes what we see is confusion between code of conduct and HIB. So we'll talk about that here today. So the actual definition I didn't put up there, it's 100 words. That's how you know I learned by lawyers. This is the more abbreviated version of it. So all of these things have to be met in order for it to be HIB. You could have inappropriate conduct that meets some, but not all of these, and it could be a code of conduct violation, But in order for it to be HIB, it has to meet all of these prongs. So, number one, there has to be some kind of act. It has to be a written, verbal, physical act, electronic communication, but something has to happen. It can't be non-action, right? Like this person didn't say anything in my defense, that's not an act. Or they gave me a dirty look. I don't know that a look is an act, right? It hasn't quite been tested yet, but it has to be something, right? Usually we have it. That's usually the least of our problems. The act has to occur on school property, on a school bus, at a school-sponsored function, or on or off school grounds. If there's some type of a nexus, we'll talk about that a little bit more later. And we're going to go into some of these in more detail as well. It has to be reasonably perceived as being motivated by an actual or perceived characteristic or some other distinguishing characteristic of the student. We'll talk more about that. It also has to substantially disrupt or interfere with either the orderly operation of the school or the rights of other students. In the beginning, this, I think, was the area that tripped up school districts the most, or that parents maybe didn't understand or students didn't understand. But we now have over 15 years of case law that really talks about this. So we'll get into that a little bit more as well. So all those things must be met, and one of the next three. So either a reasonable person should know that it's going to physically or emotionally harm a student or damage that student's property, or put the student in fear of those things, or it insults or demeans a student. This is almost always met, but it has to be one of these three. Or it creates a hostile educational environment by interfering with the student's education, or by severely or pervasively causing physical or emotional harm to a student. We don't see that one as much, but certainly the one in the middle, insulting or demeaning a student, we see that a lot. Now, we talked about reasonably perceived. It doesn't have to be actually motivated by a characteristic of the victim. The question is, did either the victim or witnesses, does a reasonable person believe that's what's motivating this conduct, right? If the answer is yes, that is reasonably perceived. The question is it reasonable? And it has to be motivated by one of these things. So what you will see on the left are what are categories we refer to as protected classes under the law against discrimination. New Jersey specifically prohibits discrimination or harassment based upon these types of things, and that made its way into the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act. So those are the things that we don't really think about: race, color, religion, ancestry, national origin, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity and expression, or some mental, physical, or sensory disability. The only thing that's in the law against discrimination that you do not see in there is age. Could it be based upon age? Sure, we could see a scenario in which maybe a group of seniors are bullying freshmen because they are freshmen. That could theoretically be motivated by age, but it's not specifically enumerated. And then it could be any other distinguishing characteristic, which has to be some type of objective characteristic, right? So we give examples of like physical appearance. Those are types of things that might be distinguishing characteristics. It's not about relative characteristics, and what I mean by that is we say, well, let's say we have the biggest kid in school who is shaking down another kid for their lunch money, right? That's like classic bullying. Sure, but why is it happening, right? And they say, well, it's obviously because this kid it's the difference in strength, right? This kid is strong and the biggest kid. Well, what if the kid he's bullying is the second biggest kid in school, right? It's not, that's a relative thing. As opposed to if someone is picking on someone because they are, perhaps they're a little person or something like that, they're objectively smaller than everybody else. That could be something that would be a distinguishing characteristic. So it's not relative, it's about something that we look at objectively and we say, yeah, okay, that's why it's happening. Now, we're going to give some examples of this. I give what I would characterize like as a trigger warning, right? To the extent that sometimes we review cases as examples that help us understand, and almost all these cases are going to involve people, mostly students, behaving badly and doing or saying bad things. So, but we're all adults here, right? Do you have any kids here? Kids, if you see stuff up there, do not do it, right? You're not supposed to do that stuff. So, all right, so first thing, this was a 5th grade kid. The allegation was that the child was committing an act of HIB. He touched a female's private parts twice while sitting in the hallway. It happened. There was no question that it happened. The question was it reasonably perceived as being motivated by this student's gender? And the parents argued that the student had a disability, including his inability to regulate his behaviors, and that kept him from fully understanding his actions. So I want to focus here on the fact that what would a reasonable person believe? Was it motivated by the fact that he was touching this young lady's private parts, right? I think a reasonable person would believe that he was sexually harassing or sexually assaulting this young lady. Whether or not that was his intention, whether or not he fully understood that it was wrong, was separate and apart from that. That may factor into the ultimate discipline that is imposed upon the student, but it doesn't factor into whether or not the conduct was motivated by that distinguishing characteristic. So the actual motivation or actual intent, not required. The other thing I'm going to say too is we don't always know what the actual motivation or intent is. We're not mind readers. We can't know what was motivating them. And I will tell you that when asked, almost all students say, well, that's not why I did it. So they're not usually going to be candid about that anyway. And in terms of the substantial disruption here, this particular student was scared, was reluctant to attend school, didn't want to be participating in a group activity. This definitely interfered with her rights, right? So no question about that. Where that term substantial disruption interference comes from, very briefly, there was a case in the 60s, Tinker versus Des Moines. Kids wore black armbands to protest the Vietnam War. School district wanted to discipline them because they felt it was inappropriate. That went to the US Supreme Court and they said, you absolutely cannot do that. There's no evidence of any actual disruption, substantial disruption to the operation of the school. They have a First Amendment right. That's where this kind of comes in. It all comes from that case. Even though it's a different issue, it's a First Amendment issue, that's the history of it. So in this particular case, I'm going to kind of summarize. We had an 8th grade boy on a bus who was constantly making inappropriate comments to this 7th grade girl and asking her to do inappropriate things, all of which constituted sexual harassment, right? They were lewd, they were indecent, they were offensive. In this Bridgewater case, it was 2014, it was for the first time that they really delved into the concept of what is a substantial disruption, because the parents were trying to argue, well, it wasn't that much of a disruption. I mean, this was happening over a period of time. It was totally inappropriate. And what they found is that, you know, kids have the right to be secure and to be let alone. And the fact of the matter is that this constant and frequent action had so affected this young lady that she didn't want to ride the bus, so forth and so on. It was inappropriate. And it definitely constituted harassment, intimidation, and bullying. But this was the first case where they really analyzed that specific piece. This, totally inappropriate stuff, but, you know, a kid was repeatedly saying Kool-Aid to his classmate who was black. The victim perceived that to be directed at him because of his race. That wasn't really the question, but the question here was there a substantial disruption or interference? The student left a sporting event early, which was not common. The student, as it turned out, was biracial. His mother was black. He asked his mother, maybe you shouldn't come to the school concert. I mean, really terrible how this student was affected by it. He was embarrassed. He was uncomfortable. He wasn't fully available for learning. That's going to be a substantial disruption or interference. Now, there's not a case that is in here, but it's a case that I think is a contrast to this one. There was a case involving a bunch of 5th grade girls. They were on a group chat. They decided that they were going to, some of them said, well, let's pull a prank on these other girls in the group chat. So we'll argue and make believe we're mad at each other. We're not going to tell everybody else. Listen, I don't understand 5th grade girls. And I didn't then, I don't now, but they were doing this and it was supposedly fun. I don't know what. They were doing that, and, you know, once someone was clued in on it, then they started doing it, and eventually someone got really angry about it and then put the N-word in the chat, and that ended everything, right? That happened like on a weekend. Monday morning comes, the parent reported it, and they said, okay, we'll investigate it. They interviewed the kid, and this case got appealed, went to the administrative law judge, went to the commissioner, went to the appellate division. They all said the same thing, because they found it wasn't a hit. They said, the conduct and the word is totally inappropriate, it's intolerable, it's not permissible, could be a code of conduct violation, fine. But was there a substantial disruption or interference? When they asked the young girl about it, they described her as being totally nonplussed about it. Her attitude was basically, oh yeah, that was really a jerk thing to do, and I thought she was a better friend than that. And that was it. She didn't miss any school, she didn't have any problems. So you can have conduct that's really inappropriate, but doesn't mean that it's a hit. It really depends upon how it affected people. And again, a single act can be harassment, intimidation, or bullying, but usually we think of things that are pretty significant. More frequently when we think of harassment, intimidation, or bullying, it's usually something that's happening over time. It could be a single act. So things that we look for when we talk about substantial disruption or interference. We look at the student's grades, we look at whether or not they said, I want to be moved to a different class, or if they're trying to avoid going somewhere. But let's say there's some bullying happens in the lunchroom and the kid starts eating lunch somewhere else instead of going to the lunchroom. Those are the typical things. I mean, rarely, but it could happen that kids have physical manifestations, or it causes disorder in the learning environment. That has happened. So those are the things that we look at. It's different and apart from being upset in the moment and then, like 15 minutes later they're fine, right? So that's a distinction here. Where it can occur, usually it's going to be on school grounds. If it's going to be conduct away from school grounds, which is actually where most of the cyberbullying takes place, there's a heightened standard. It has to be something that is necessary, reasonably necessary for the physical or emotional safety, security, and well-being of the student or of other students or staff or school property. And it has to materially, substantially interfere with the requirements of appropriate discipline in the operation of school. So it's got to be something significant. It's not necessarily just people being mean or teasing someone or whatever the case may be. Something that kind of what I'm going to characterize as bleeds into the school. And something that if we didn't discipline for, it's going to cause problems within the school. And it has to be necessary for us to impose that discipline to protect the health, safety, and security of the students. So that's when we think about that. In terms of timelines, I'm going to go through this very briefly, but this is upon receipt of reliable information of a HIB. So if a staff member receives information, they believe that this is, I'm going to say that this is likely to be a HIB, right? They report it. Now, if we see something where we're not sure if it's HIB or not HIB, you report it as a potential code of conduct violation, it doesn't necessarily automatically get reported as a HIB, right? I mean, if we have no reason to believe that the motivation was based upon a distinguishing characteristic, we don't have to report all of those things. We say, oh, this kid punched the other kid, and we have no idea why that happened, but it was a code of conduct violation. We report that. If a couple of days later we find out, well, this happened because he was saying, I'm going to do this to you because of your sexual orientation or because of your religion or whatever, and we get that information, oh, okay, maybe now we are going to follow through with this as following a HIB 3384. So when we have information that a staff member believes is HIB, verbally must be reported the same day to the school principal. The principal is then going to turn around and inform parents, keeping a record of all that. The HIB 338 form must be filled out within 2 school days, and the principal might make a preliminary determination at that point whether to investigate or not investigate, depending upon whether or not, if we accept everything and the report is true, could it be a HIB, or if not, then we don't need to investigate. If we do investigate, we start within 1 school day of the report. It has to be done within 10 school days. Once that's done, it gets reported to the superintendent within 2 school days after it's done. Now, sometimes, for reasons that are unusual, maybe a kid is out of school for a period of time and we can't get it done within 10 school days, we still have to issue at least a preliminary report within 10 school days. We can always amend it, but we've got to get it done within 10 school days. Once the superintendent determines what, if any, additional discipline is going to be imposed, or services, or counseling, then it gets reported to the board. The board hears about it, and what that means when I say the board hears about it, it's different in every different school district. It could be a presentation in the executive session. It could be an email summarizing the HIBs. It could be something that's in a Google Drive or a Google Doc. So long as the board has the opportunity to review it and ask questions at the next meeting, they need to hear about it. Once the board hears about it, then the superintendent tells all the students who are involved, the victim or alleged victim and the offender or alleged offender. The parents get notice within 5 school days after the board hears about it of, hey, this is what was determined. If you want to appeal it, you can appeal it, so forth and so on. At the next meeting, regardless of whether the parents appeal or don't appeal, the board is going to affirm, reject, or modify the decision. The parents might appeal before that, they might appeal after that, but they can ultimately appeal. If the parents are dissatisfied with it, they can always appeal to the Commissioner of Education. So that's the general process. So now we're going to talk about the case law and things that people shouldn't be doing and whether they were him or not him. So this first one, so this is about a lunch aid, right? Now, to be clear, the victim always has to be a student, right? The offender could be anybody. So the allegation is that this lunch aide bullied this kid by making her sit by herself at lunch and miss recess for doing nothing wrong and cry. Okay, that actually wasn't true, but that was the allegation. When they asked, well, what is the reason, like what's the distinguishing characteristic? The mom said, well, you know, I have beef with this person. We have this personal history. Now they don't say what the personal history is. I don't know. Did the lunch aide steal this lady's boyfriend? You know, are they like really like difficult? Like is one person a Yankees fan, one person a Red Sox fan? We don't know what it is, but there was some beef between the people, and they did the investigation, and they found that, you know, whatever happened. I mean, the kid was violating school rules, and so they did stay in from recess one or more times. The district handled it the way they were supposed to handle it. They actually said to the aide, like, you know what, why don't you work with other kids? This just to avoid the fact that, you know, you have this history with the parent. But ultimately it wasn't hit, right? Even if the conduct was wrong, it still wasn't hit. The parent appealed, and the commissioner said, look, you didn't identify a distinguishing characteristic of the student that motivated the behavior. Even if it's true that she was targeting your child because you guys have this personal history, it's still not a hit. That might result in employment consequences to the aide. It's totally inappropriate, but not necessarily a hit. So that's one thing. It's got to be a distinguishing characteristic of the student. So in this particular case, we had a kid who was homeschooled for many years, then came to 5th grade. Mom said that he was being repeatedly taunted and kicked in the private area by his classmates, and the reason was that he was good at math and science, and also because, quote, they know that he was National Math Kangaroo Champion 2 years in a row. This is the first time I knew that you could be a National Math Kangaroo Champion, and I don't know if we have one here in Montgomery, but, you know, get to work on that, folks. So in this particular case, they conducted a lot of interviews. They talked to all sorts of people. They could not find any evidence that any of these things happened. So it was ultimately determined to be inconclusive. They couldn't find it. There were some procedural violations here because they didn't necessarily adhere to the timelines. Part of it may have been the parent who kept amending the information. So they did kind of get a slap on the wrist for that. But ultimately, it didn't violate the student's due process rights. It didn't invalidate the findings, right? It's not like, well, because you didn't adhere to the timelines, now I'm going to get a decision that it was a hit. No, it's still determined, it's still based on the merits, right? It's not a technical violation. So in this particular case, it was reviewed by the commissioner. The commissioner said, look, there's no evidence that that the board acted dishonestly or in bad faith. It was a difficult situation. You have to weigh it. You know, they judged based upon the credibility of the witnesses. Here, there were no witnesses who were identified who could support the kid's claims. That was upheld, as it should be. I mean, the standard is whether or not the board's decision was arbitrary, capricious, or unreasonable, and that's usually pretty hard to overturn. Not never, but hard to overturn. In this particular case, kid made an inappropriate comment about, allegedly, about a student based upon the student's skin color. They investigated. The kid actually wasn't even in school that day. So maybe it wasn't March 30th, maybe it was a different day. The parents also brought up various other things that went back to 2019. So the board didn't interview anybody about those. They just focused on what happened in 2023. And they said it was inconclusive. They couldn't find any evidence that it happened. Parent appealed. Ultimately appealed by saying, well, you also didn't investigate the 2019 claims. So the board won on the claims about what happened on March 30th of 23. They said, yeah, that decision was not arbitrary, capricious, or unreasonable. The board tried to say, well, you have to appeal within 90 days, and these things go back, 4 years, so they're too late. And the commissioner said, well, it's 90 days from when you guys issue a decision, and you never interviewed it, so you never issued a decision, so they can't have blown the timeline. So the upshot of that is that when parents are making old claims, depending upon the circumstances, you might use the principal's determination to say, well, even if these things are true, they still can't be a HIB, or you might investigate them, and you know what? Who knows what you're going to find? It's 4 years ago. My guess is you're going to interview 5 or 6 kids, and you're going to say, I have no idea what you're talking about. Or if they all say, oh yeah, we remember that, that was horrible. Well, maybe that was a HIB, right? I mean, so we have to at least check off the boxes there at a minimum to make sure that, you know, we're investigating those claims. So this was the case where, you know, Snapchat, sometimes the bane of our existence, I think. They had a thread on Snapchat or some kind of thing in Snapchat, whatever it was, where they were mocking a young lady based upon her appearance, based upon her weight, her sexual orientation. Really nasty. She wasn't part of this thread. A kid who was part of it shared it with the school staff. The victim finds out about it. She's really upset. She's crying. She's anxious. She doesn't want to go to high school now with these same kids. She's in 8th grade because of everything that happened. This kid who reported it also was getting enough flack and experiencing distress that she signed herself out of school because she didn't want to go to high school with these kids. So, you know, the conduct was inappropriate, it was bad. All of that stuff was mad. They did a full investigation. A lot of kids got suspended. One of the kids who got a 6-day suspension appealed it. And his argument was, well, this violates my First Amendment right. And what he said was that there was this case in 2021, US Supreme Court. There were 2 young ladies who were in, I think, freshman in high school. They were at a Quick Check, or the equivalent in Pennsylvania, whatever it is. And they were upset about things involving the school, so they took a picture of themselves flipping the bird. And they said in the picture that they posted to Snapchat or Instagram, whatever it was, F school, F volleyball, or whatever, F the, you know, some other sport, I forget what it was now, cheerleading, and F everything, right? You know, which sometimes we feel that way, but you can't put it out on social media. So it got back to the school. The school wanted to suspend them, but the problem was it didn't cause a substantial disruption. So if we go back to Tinker versus Des Moines, they talked about it for 5 minutes during a math class. That's not a substantial disruption, right? I mean, that was something insignificant. They couldn't discipline for that. So this person said, well, you can't discipline me. Look at that case from Mahanoy Area School District versus BL. So what I always tell people is read all the way to the end, right? Because the Supreme Court specifically said it does violate the student's First Amendment rights, but doesn't if, for example, it was targeting a member of the school community and constituted harassment, intimidation, or bullying. It's like they read, you know, 99% of the case and didn't read the last percent there. So that was not a significant, that was not a valid defense. They couldn't do that. It did substantially disrupt and interfere with the orderly operation of the school. It interfered with these kids' rights. That was totally appropriate for them to find HIB and to discipline. In this particular case, in more inappropriate conduct, here the claim was that the investigation was insufficient. And what happened was they did an investigation, but they didn't interview every single kid in the hallway. These kids are walking down the hallway, someone hears them use the N-word. The kids initially denied it, and one kid said, oh, no, I didn't say anything. That was Johnny saying, move, move, move. So they did the investigation, they didn't find the kids were credible. The board heard it, the parents brought up other things and said, you didn't interview everybody. They remanded it back to the superintendent and said, superintendent, you do the investigation. Superintendent the investigation, and then the story changed, and they said, well, it wasn't Johnny that said anything, but I said, move, Nikki, move. But that's all that I said, which was probably closer to what the kid actually said, but wasn't actually what he said. They didn't find that it was believable. You know, they saw, there's no audio, but they saw the video, and they saw the girl's walking, and then she whips her head around and starts like yelling at someone. So they figured, yeah, we think that it did happen. And of course, the person who's standing right next to her also said that it happened. The parents were complaining, you didn't interview all 30 kids in the hallway. You don't have to. We just have to interview a couple of kids and make a determination as to whether or not it's reasonable. There were written statements, there were interview notes, there was all this information. They said that's a sufficient investigation. It's not arbitrary, capricious, or unreasonable. So that's important to know there. So sometimes we see this thing happen. The facts are not super important. There was an allegation that a teacher made a kid read An Engine Without Brakes, and somehow they said that was being done because he has ADHD, and we're bullying my kid based upon his disability. I don't know where that came from, but that was not what happened. They assigned the story to everybody. They never talked about the kid's disability or anything like that. The parent said, well, I'm not letting you interview my child. So that's not a thing, that's like a legal right. In this particular case, Ringwood said, fine, we won't interview your kid, who's the victim. We'll interview everybody else. And they interviewed everybody else, and they found that it was inconclusive. The parent then challenged it, and one of the things she complained about was that, I guess, that they didn't interview her child, which she wouldn't let happen, right? So ultimately what they said was, look, had they been allowed to interview your child, maybe they would have come to the conclusion that this was reasonably perceived as being motivated by the child's ADHD. Or maybe they would have concluded that it did substantially interfere with this student's rights. But you didn't let it happen, and they had to base their determination based upon the information they had. So this was upheld. But I do bring it up because we do see in some school districts from time to time, they say, well, you can't interview my student. Usually it's not the victim, usually it's the alleged offender. Or I have to be present. Those things are all not legally supportable. You can only imagine if every time a child violated a school rule and we had to investigate, if we had to wait until the parent came to be present for an interview. I don't know what else you would get done all day long, but that's not a right that people have. That's not a thing, I like to say. So you, school administrators, stand in loco parentis. You can interview kids. You don't even have to call the parents before you do the interviews. You can just let them know that it happened. But in certain places, people have different feelings about that. Those feelings are not the law, and so that's totally appropriate to do. In terms of retaliation, our national math kangaroo champion came back again in this case. And in this particular case, he was trying to get kids in trouble, and then use the hip allegations as a way of getting the kids in trouble. So he would go up to them and say, yes, they want to play Jenga, they didn't want to play Jenga. Then he would say, oh, well, they're not playing with me because of my disability or whatever it was. The important thing here is that there's two things. Number one, we can't retaliate against people for filing a hip claim. Right, that's inappropriate, but you also can't use it as a means of retaliation in and of itself. So that's in your HIP policy. Valid HIP claims, of course, are totally fine. Even if it turns out that's not true, it's fine, but actively using it to get kids in trouble, that's not appropriate, and that wasn't acceptable here. Again, when we talk about the actual intent or motivation, this actually happened here. This was a student that was using inappropriate language. In this particular case, the student had a 504 plan. He felt that the allegations that were being made against him were based upon his disability. He was embarrassed, not necessarily accessible for learning. So there were two defenses here, both of which never worked. The first defense was, well, you didn't think about his actual intent. He didn't know that it would be offensive. I challenge that and say that, yes, you do know that that term is going to be offensive. So that, to me, isn't particularly credible. The other thing was, they said, well, the victim was stabbing my child with a pencil or poking him, and that's why he did it. So two wrongs don't make a right, and that's not appropriate, that's not a valid defense. Ultimately, this was upheld. We don't have to look at actual motivation. How did they reasonably perceive it? Other people thought that he was making these comments based upon the student's disability, and that was acceptable. Now, slightly differently here at Long Hill, this was a teacher who did not have his best day at work, I'm going to say. He was teaching kids, they were playing the recorder, this young lady played the recorder wrong, the teacher was frustrated and was correcting her and said, I'm trying not to lose my temper. And then he was talking to another student, and he called that other student by a different name, and so this young girl said, that's not his name, you should call him by his real name, and I'm trying not to lose my temper with you. So that's sassy, fine, but she's a child and you're an adult, right? But this teacher got angry, they got into a loud argument, she tries to return to her seat, she grabs her by the arm, have you lost your mind? Totally inappropriate, not his best day as a teacher, right? The parents filed a HIP claim, they said the reason he did this is because of my child's disability, which is ADHD. So, was there a substantial disruption to the student's rights? Yes. Did it meet all the other criteria to HIP? Yes. Was it reasonably perceived as being motivated by a distinguishing characteristic? No. Why? because nobody knows that this child has ADHD. It was a secret, right? She was not, we didn't know that she was they didn't know that she was on medication. The student didn't have an IEP. The student didn't have a 504 plan. There was nothing that tied it to that. It was reasonably perceived that the teacher lost his cool, but it was because of the way that the student was being, I guess, disrespectful to him, not because of the student's disability. So a little bit different from the last case, right? But there could be a situation where, while the actual intent doesn't matter, it has to be reasonable that it happened in that way, right? Just inappropriate comments about height and religion. Here, the student wasn't fully available for learning. The parent tried to claim that they made a lot of errors during the investigation. He also said that this inappropriate statement, which they called the kid a Jewish monkey, they said, well, there's an Israeli rock band called the Jewish Monkeys, and that's what my child meant. Okay, not believable, but fine. Ultimately, the question was, what was reasonable here? Was it reasonably believed that they were saying that because the student was Jewish, not because they were referring to an Israeli rock band? Yes, that was reasonable, and this was upheld. They did not find that the investigation was inappropriate, nor did they find that the decision was arbitrary, capricious, or unreasonable. So that's that one. This is a Mount Olive case. The only thing that's important to know here is that inappropriate comment clearly, should have been reported. For reasons that aren't clear to me, it just wasn't reported for several days. Just want to reaffirm, if a staff member has a reason to believe that there has been a HIB that's been committed, it has to be reported verbally the same day, and the HIB 33A form has to be filled out within 2 days. We can't just pass it off onto the parent in that situation. In the end, the finding was affirmed, but they were noted for not complying with the timelines. This is another one here. Students calling the student acoustic. They were using that term in place of autistic, saying that's acoustic, or whatever it is. Not appropriate. The anti-bullying specialist investigated it and found that it was a HIB. There were various questions that were raised about various aspects of where it took place and some of the allegations. At the end, the important thing here is that the burden, unlike a special ed case, for example, where the burden is on the school district to prove that its IEP is appropriate, here the burden is on the parent. So the parent made a lot of allegations, but they ultimately were not sustained, right? They had the burden. And when we talk about arbitrary, capricious, and unreasonable, what we're talking about is there room for two opinions? And two reasonable people, one person might say, yeah, I think it's bullying. The other person says, no, I don't think it is. If that's the case, that's going to be upheld, because that's not arbitrary, capricious, or unreasonable. Arbitrary, capricious, or unreasonable is like when we're flipping a coin, or we're deciding like, well, there's been too many HIB cases. I don't want to have 10 HIB findings, so I'm just going to make this one not a HIB. Well, that's totally arbitrary or capricious, so that's not appropriate. But here, if two reasonable minds could disagree whether it's HIB or not HIB, that's almost always going to be affirmed if that's appealed. This case is not, to me, I don't know, not super interesting in the sense that we have it in here just to know that sometimes you can get summary decision on these cases. You don't need to actually have testimony. In this case, the board tried to get summary decision. The parents opposed it, and for some reason the judge got confused and granted it on behalf of the parent who didn't file a motion for summary decision. Ultimately, the board went to the commissioner on that one. The commissioner said, no, there's too many facts that are contested here. This actually has to go to a hearing. One of the things was there substantial disruption or interference? That's a common one. Anyway, that's the summary. That's my dog Lance. His questions are, can I have more treats? If people want more treats, there are some over there. But does anybody have any questions for me about him?
Just going back to the nexus to school point, could you just go over that a little bit more?
Sure.
I think sometimes, especially in this age of social media, you have sleepovers and something happens and it's video, shot on iPhone and it gets passed around. So could you just go into that a little bit more?
Absolutely, yeah. So what we really want to analyze when we're looking at conduct away from school grounds is the impact that it has on the school. And is it really necessary to protect the health, safety, and well-being of students? So I'm going to give an example outside the context of HIB, but just to kind of illustrate. When we have a student who we find got arrested for possession of CDS, conduct, away from school grounds. It happened on Saturday night, whatever. Whatever they had on them, inappropriate, you can't have that stuff on you. They get arrested. That's not going to be enough to discipline a kid in school if there's no connection. Contrast that with, we have a kid who gets arrested for possession of CDS. He also has a scale. He also has 50 little glassine bags. He also has like $500 of cash in his pocket, right? And he gets arrested for possession with intent to distribute, right? That's the kind of thing that we can discipline for, because where are his customers going to be? They're probably going to be in the school. It's reasonably necessary for us to discipline that student in order to protect the other kids in the school. So in the context of HIB, when we look at that, is the action of such a nature, and again with social media, sometimes the stuff, it gets spread through the school. Sometimes it's not necessarily the person who did the HIB who spreads it, but that's kind of inherent in putting stuff on social media, right? I mean, you kind of have to live with the consequences of your action. You can't say, well, I didn't know that was going to spread throughout the school. Well, why didn't you know that? So if we think that it's important to discipline because it's either it's going to do both. It's going to interfere with the operation of the school if we don't discipline the student, but also if it's important to make sure that we're protecting the health and the safety and mental health, well-being of the students, yes, then it can. A lot of times it's going to depend upon the severity. It's going to depend upon how far it spreads. If it was something that was just minor that happened, kids are getting into a disagreement at a soccer game and one kid yells something totally inappropriate at a rec soccer game against the other kid, and that's it. Probably not. No, I don't think so. But something that kind of spreads and becomes a big deal, yeah, that's likely going to then come into the ability for us to discipline for that. And again, a lot of it too is also going to depend upon how significantly it's affecting the student. Or it could be a group of students too, because it could be something that's totally inappropriate, and maybe the direct victim wasn't so upset, but maybe the whole community the whole school community is outraged about it. That could happen too, and that could be a valid basis.
Hi Vic, I have a question. So when we as board members evaluate the HIV, review the HIV cases, monthly, what tips would you recommend to us, to make sure the recommendations is kind of consistent?
Right. So the way that because we represent a lot of different school districts, what I always try to have folks focus on is, as you're looking through the report, is there anything that, like if you look at it, you just say, well, this doesn't match up, right? Like I'm looking at all of the prongs and I'm feeling like this one right here, I'm not understanding why it's not met or whatever. Those are valid questions I think to ask and to review. A lot of times I will say this, right? Because I think that you should also be looking at it as, was the anti-bullying specialist decision here, was that arbitrary or capricious or unreasonable? Because, and the thing that I would remind people is that the anti-bullying specialist who's doing the interview is really the only person who can legitimately judge the credibility of those witnesses, right? He or she is the person who did all the interviews. He or she can tell whether one person had a very consistent story and the other person didn't, or can tell whether one person was very open and the other person was somewhat cagey, or was acting in a way that made them seem like they were not necessarily telling the truth. Maybe they caught them in a lie, or maybe they were very fidgety and didn't want to answer questions. Whatever the reason may be, we leave it to them to make those determinations. Because it's very difficult for anyone other than the investigator to assess when there are credibility determinations. So I feel like when there are credibility determinations, those are the ones that I say we shouldn't be challenging those, right? If something looks off and we think that maybe a step wasn't done, or they didn't check off the boxes, and sometimes I've seen that in different school districts where it says, yes, this is a HIB, and I'm looking at the check boxes, and the one checkbox that isn't checked off is substantial disruption or interference. How could it be a HIB if that's not checked off, right? Could be just an administrative error, maybe there was one, and the rest of the report substantiates that, or maybe there wasn't. So those are the things that I try to focus on, is to make sure you know, did the investigator make sure, I mean, and I mean this not in a pejorative way, did they check off all the boxes? Did they do their job there? And make sure that they determined appropriately, was it hib or not hib? If the question is, well, you know, I don't know if I would have found that this, I don't think this is reasonable to perceive that this was being motivated by this characteristic or not. Those to me are, so long as it's reasonably debatable, I wouldn't really set those aside, right? In the end, if the investigator came to a conclusion and we sit there and we go, oh, maybe if I investigated this, I might have come to a different conclusion, I wouldn't necessarily set that aside. I think if we all say, like, I don't know how this investigator came to the conclusion that this was reasonable and everyone kind of collectively agrees with that, which I think probably doesn't happen very often, but it could happen, that's one that I think is worth review and discussion. But generally speaking, I think we should be looking at to make sure that we don't have anything that is being called a hib and it didn't meet all the prongs, or someone said, well, this isn't hib, but it does meet all the prongs. I'm like, well, why isn't it hib? So I think those are the things that I would look at. But fundamentally, I think, like in terms of the role of a board member, right? I mean, it's not to substitute ourselves for the anti-bullying specialist, but just to make sure, like, are they doing the things that they're supposed to do? Is it clear to me, even if I might have reached a different conclusion, is it clear to me why they've reached their conclusion? That's the approach that I would take.
Thank you.
Sure.
So a basic takeaway message is have a quick checklist and just make sure nothing was left.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's right. Yeah.
I have a question. My question is regarding, is there any consistency on all the public schools, how much reporting they have to do, including the agenda for public to see? Is it per monthly? We don't do it in our district. So I was just wondering, is there any rules, regulations on
Sure,
that?
that's a good question. So what I would say is, at a minimum, what you have to do, and this is what I would say most districts do, at a minimum, you have to present a report, I believe it's twice a year, and just talking about like the summary statistics and, you know, how many investigations we did, how many findings there were, you know, kind of usually break them down by school and say how many were investigated that weren't hib, how many were investigated that were hib, and you have to do that twice a year. I think that's technically part of the, I don't remember off the top of my head if it's part of the violence and vandalism report generally, but usually I see them around the same time. And that's what I know that all school districts do. There may be some school districts that give a more frequent reporting. That I would say is very much optional. That's not something that's required by the law. But the only thing I would be careful about, because I've seen different school districts do different things, is just to be cautious about how much information we provide, because sometimes we provide information that people could look at it and they go, oh, okay, well, if, like, for example, if you indicated what level of discipline kids got for engaging in hib violations, well, you know, especially if you kind of indicate like what the violation was or what the general facts were, or if you have like a student ID number, or you say like where it happened, people can figure out who got disciplined. And that's information that we don't give away, right? I mean, that's information that's part of the student record and it's confidential. So whenever someone says, well, you know, my child was in a fight with so-and-so, or so-and-so assaulted my child, I want to know what discipline he received, we always say the same thing. We can't tell you what discipline they received, that's part of the student record, but what we can tell you is that we handled it appropriately and we're dealing with it, and you know, when appropriate, we give the appropriate school-based consequences, or counseling, or whatever the case may be. So that's the only thing I would say. Whatever a board decides to put out there, if it increases the frequency if it's reporting, or gives some additional detail, we should be careful about what detail we provide, because we don't want to violate any students' rights. But yeah, you only have to do it twice a year.
Yeah,
Sorry, I gave a super long-winded answer. I could have made it a lot shorter. Sorry about that.
We have to do it twice a year.
Yes.
But if we want, some schools may choose to do more often.
Correct.
And in more detail and things like that. So it's
Correct.
all up to the district what they decide to do.
That's right.
Thank you.
Sure.
So they just follow up too is, for example, like the decision recommendation from each case, even at the summary level, you would not recommend to release that to public? So let's say 10 reported HIV, 2 found, and 2 the case, you know, the decision is suspension or consultation. We cannot even provide that.
I probably wouldn't provide probably wouldn't provide by the specific case, especially the HIP. Sometimes we see like they have like the HIP number listed. I mean, if I'm someone who was involved in that, I know that HIP number, I can figure out who the other person was. So I wouldn't put down what discipline was imposed or services. I mean, having general statements, especially like when you do like the biannual reporting and you talk about like how many investigations you've done, that's fine. But I think starting to get into on individual cases, what level of discipline was imposed or whether counseling was provided or things like that, that to me is where we start getting into the area where we could potentially identify students, and so I wouldn't want to do that. But having general discussions indicating that, yeah, there were this many investigations, this many were confirmed, and where there were confirmed, appropriate levels of discipline were provided. That level of generality, I think, is fine. Getting a little more specific, I think, then starts to potentially cause problems. All right, thank you. That was longer than I wanted it to be, but that seems like that always happens. My wife will tell you that all the time. But thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you.
Our next and last presentation is on the strategic plan.
Are you up first? Yeah.
As they're pulling up the presentation, I can start. So this is our share out of the progress of where we are in year 2 of our 5-year strategic plan. Our district goals are aligned with the strategic plan. So where to locate information on the strategic plan? If you go under parents, there's a subsection that says strategic plan. And there's a whole section, if you could look, the next page you would be able to see how you could click on all the information on the strategic plan right on our website that was renovated, and you'll hear about that as one of our progress. So goal 1 is our student experience. Goal 2 is communication, community engagement, and outreach. Goal 3 is culture and climate, which is social emotional learning, cultural sensitivity, health and wellness, and resilience. Take a minute to look at that. So goal 1, I'm going to call up Ms. Fiona Borland, who is the leader for goal 1.
Okay, so I have probably the most slides to go through, but it is goal 1, and it is about teaching and learning and student achievement. So if you're a school district, that's something that we should do a lot of. So forgive me for a lot of the slides that you're going to see for a moment, but we are a really busy goal team. So we have 5 different objectives. I'm going to go through each objective in our goal and what we've done so far this year. So again, our first objective is to support personalized, diverse, and inclusive learning through comprehensive student advisement. And so the first action that we have done this year is to gather, review, and incorporate new resources that support universal access to learning. So as you have heard from this podium so many times, universal design for learning speaks to teachers being able to plan lessons at the curricular level that are ready for students to learn in different ways, at different levels, providing access for all and as many students in their classroom as they can. One of the things that we're doing this year is that we are moving this initiative that has been mostly supported by an external consulting firm. Over the last few years, we've been using IDE Corp, Innovative Designs for Education, to be coaching our teachers, running workshops, doing book studies, a myriad of different resources for us. And now this year, they are really focusing on coaching our internal leadership so that we can take over the continuation of this work, and that this work does not go away just because we don't have the consulting firm at that moment. This looks like, just in case you're wondering what it looks like our external consultant walking around with one of our supervisors or one of our building leaders, going into classrooms, observing lessons, and then spending time calibrating. What would the feedback be? What does the language look like? And really making sure that we are able to keep this work going. There's also a UDL Google form available consistently for staff to share resources. So we want, when staff create exemplar lessons, we want to gather them. This is their way to submit them. Teachers are asked to submit these types of lessons regularly at their department meetings or at their team meetings. And as we collect them, we add them to our Rubicon Atlas database so that teachers can access them, and we have that as institutional knowledge. Okay, continuing in Objective 1. We also are engaging teams in curriculum development. We are reviewing curriculum documents, and we are empowering students to take an active role in their learning. So this year we have developed a timeline for articulation, curriculum work, and formal Atlas Rubicon updates of Stage 3. So what Stage 3 means to me and what everybody else needs to know, it's the actual teaching and learning. So as parents, you often see what we're teaching and what we're using to teach. But Stage 3 is where teachers go to access different ideas for their lessons and really working to make that as robust and as teacher-friendly as possible. We are working with grade level and PLC teams to gather, review, and incorporate these resources so that students can take an active role in their learning. This looks like students making choices. So when you go into a classroom, there might be a choice to attend a mini lesson or to get started working with a peer, or to potentially read something as compared to viewing something. So there's just a lot of choices, and helping students recognize the way that they learn best. Another aspect of Objective 1 is that we are in the process of reviewing course offerings and schedules in comparable districts. This is being led by JP Magavati and Adam Wachowski, and the amount of hours that they have put into this is profound. So they have collected 19 programs of studies from comparable districts around the state. They have reviewed these programs of studies and documented the course offerings, and they are currently in the process of analyzing the trends. So their work is, they each have like a 5-inch binder for this work that they're doing. It's pretty impressive. Okay, so Objective 2, moving on. To promote a connected, creative, experiential learning environment, fostering real-world connections within our curriculum. So our actions for this year were to identify areas of collaborative partnerships to increase and start community outreach, and to incorporate purposeful community connections into the curriculum. What I always want to differentiate here is that when we're talking about partnerships and community outreach, this is in direct relationship to our curriculum. We are profoundly lucky to live in the kind of community that we live in. We have authors, we have astronauts, we have engineers, we have teachers, we have safety people, we have entrepreneurs. And so it's really amazing that when we can bring in our resources to help our students really understand what does learning look like in the real world. So at this point, we have met with each cabinet. Cabinets are referred to our grade band teams. So all of the K4 administration works together as a K4 cabinet, all of the 5-8, and then all of the 9-12. Directors, we go to all three and sit in where we can to be useful. And so we have worked with each cabinet to review current community partners. We have determined whether each partnership is still active and how many students are benefiting from it, and some obviously a wide range there. And we are developing wish lists. So really saying, like, wouldn't it be great if we had, and working to form those partnerships. The other big piece of Objective 2 has been work that we've been doing on Portrait of the Graduate. There has been an enormous work done. Portrait of the Graduate came out of our previous strategic plan, and when we were planning for this one, the request was to revisit it. This has not been a throw the baby out with the bathwater and start from scratch. This has been take an excellent idea that we had and review it and to look at what needed to be tweaked and updated 5 years later. So we have worked to gather feedback from preschool to grade 12 faculty to evaluate each of the current language or each of the current areas and the language that is part of that. We have reviewed all of that feedback and we have looked for patterns and recommendations, and we have reviewed similar districts to figure out, how do we align with other districts, and we're all very similar across the board when you look at trying to prepare your students to be socially and emotionally well, college and career ready, and responsible adults. We want them to be all of those things. We've continued this work by revising all of the statements to make sure that there's an appropriate progression, right? So if something is in the elementary school, what does it look like when you get to middle school, and how do you stretch that into high school? We've turned all of the statements into I can statements. We set our English supervisors loose on the document and made sure that they felt that all of the tenses and plurals and grammar was all excellently done. And we met as a goal team to review final draft. I will say that when we met to review the final draft, as often happens in committees, it was decided it was not the final draft. And so we will be bringing a small team in to making some smaller tweaks, and then we will bring it to Mary and talk about what happens next with our Portrait of the Graduate. Okay, moving on. Objective 3, to examine the curriculum to create a standard progression of learning across the grade levels, content areas, and academic levels. So the first way we've been doing this is we've divided each of the content areas up over several years, right? So last year we were doing reading, this year we're doing writing. Last year we did math, and now this year we're doing science, right? So we're looking for the content area supervisors to work with their teachers to actually look for skill gaps. So we have the standards. There's always a written curriculum and a taught curriculum. Where are we missing any skills that we wish our students had? And there has been a lot of articulation between teachers, probably more articulation between departments, teachers, and buildings than I've ever seen before in my years here in Montgomery. It's been very exciting. So we are seeing that we've got the science articulation is already well underway. H and PE departments are scheduled to discuss curriculum in the upcoming PD day, which may have happened in February. Did. And the reading and English departments are working in the spring to have this happen. Math curriculum writing is planned for 2026 to revise units to better reflect the articulation that happened last year. And really on the February 17th day, it was incredibly exciting to watch all of our English teachers or language arts teachers from K1 was the only grade that didn't transition a building, but we had articulation between each of the transitioning grades, and it was one of the most powerful days that I've ever experienced. So it was really cool. Okay, there was also a request as part of this objective to develop a common philosophy around CP, honors, AP placement, and rigor. And the question on the plain question on the table is it possible for an honors course to be more rigorous than an AP course, and is that appropriate? And this has been an ongoing conversation with the different content areas at the high school cabinet. It has been one of the most informational conversations that I've been a part of, and it really helps when you have the experts of their content in the room. And so what really the supervisors were incredibly articulated explaining is that based on, there's so many nuances and layers that can come into this. The first and the most obvious is the content of the course. If the content of the course is, literature, the language course where you're doing language and composition, that's going to have a different level of rigor than a course in which you are in an honors course, but you're going to be reading, 10 novels that year. It can feel different, and it's based on the content. It also depends on the different pathways that students choose. Because when you get into the 11th and 12th grade, you have students pursuing different STEM, you have pursuing different humanities, and it begins to put students in, it begins to change the makeup of the course as well. And so really that is just another influencing factor on the perception of the academic rigor across the three areas. I will say to you at this point, I feel very comfortable and confident with the academic rigor and the rationale at each of the levels. But this is never going to be a conversation that we stop. You know, this is part of all of that articulation and all of that curriculum alignment that I've just spoken about in the other 2 slides. Okay, objective 4. Although we wrote it as emerging technologies, the emerging technology that everybody is talking about is AI. So we have committed this year to identifying stakeholders to include in technology committees and to create a policy aligned with our mission and vision. So the building cabinets, as I mentioned before, are going to be used as our tech committees. MHS has gotten out in front. They have created an incredibly robust document that identifies AI guidelines in different courses and in different categories. They've really created a pretty great tool that UMS and LMS are using right now to examine from their lens as well. All of these will end up in the handbook next year. So next year you should see AI language to help inform students of ethical and acceptable uses of AI, and to help to make sure that our students know what is and is not accepted. We are also continuing to seek administrative professional development on AI use and its integration into district software, monitoring for appropriateness and curricular impact. There's probably not a tool that I have opened this year that we have owned for many years that now doesn't have a button that says AI integration. So it's constantly making sure that we are up and we are developed on what are the new things that are being added to the software that we use. We are developing high school and middle school student advisory groups to get the student voice on AI as well, and that will be coming this spring. In addition, we count on Mr. Brooks to be taking a pulse on the ed tech environment through conferences, through county and state meetings, through other professional organizations, and he really is the guide of helping us determine what is ethical and acceptable, both staff and student use. And so again, continuing that professional development and professional collaboration through team, department, and articulation meetings. This is different at every level, it is different at every content area, and it's different based on what AI is now able to do today that it couldn't do yesterday. So this is definitely a challenging objective because it is emerging hourly. And last but not least, in order to do all 4 of those objectives that I've already mentioned, you have to have a continuous commitment to building your internal staff capacity for leadership, to be able to turnkey the things that they do wonderfully well, and so also exploring opportunities to provide more peer coaching within the content areas. I mentioned the UDL leadership coaching, and they're also on the PD surveys are questions on how to enhance and increase our summer PD attendance. This used to be something that was regularly attended just because there was a lot of offerings that teachers really enjoyed. There seems to be a lot of barriers that have been post-COVID that are hard to overcome, and so just really looking for ways to increase teacher flexibility and attendance at PD that happens outside the school day, which is difficult and challenging, and so we're asking our teachers, how can we help? And this is goal 2. I was just going to keep going, but I'll introduce you. Goal 2 is led by, I have to do questions? Sorry. All right, so I'm going to pause now and say, are there any questions with goal T1?
Yeah, hi. I have a question is when you mentioned about the high school, honor, AP opportunities, do we also looking for expanding some dual enrollment opportunities?
Yes, that is absolutely part of it. As you know, we do have dual enrollment with Seton Hall, and we are looking to continue to expand that.
Oh, okay. So I know for Seton Hall is for the pottery rate, what the subject, and you're looking for more expanding to other subjects, or?
Yes. I'm looking to Mr. Delgado because it falls under him, and I'm going to give a halfway answer when he's sitting right behind me and can give the robust answer.
Yeah, we're looking to scale up our offerings for dual enrollment. We have a great partnership with Seton Hall right now, and so we right now have some courses pending approval, some instructors pending approval, so we can gradually build out our dual, we call it concurrent enrollment program.
That's really great to know. Thank you so much.
One more question. So you mentioned that you do have community experts come and speak to students, right? How do you reach out to them or they apply, or how does that work?
So right now, the first step that we've done in this year, remember this is a five-year plan, we're in year 2. So our step this year was to gather the partnerships that the schools already have in existence. And so that was part 1. Then part 2 was to truly analyze those. So are they still in place? Who brought them in? And are they still being used? And then the last piece where we are up to is the schools creating the wish list of saying, okay, well, wouldn't it be great if we had someone who could talk about farming methods, if we had somebody who could come in and talk about social media as a career, if we could have someone who could come, so what we're doing is we've asked and surveyed, what are you looking for and what would enhance your curriculum? And then we will build a process next year in how to gather and communicate to the community to gather more local resources. Absolutely, that's the goal.
Do you have any plans of having alumni come and speak to kids?
I just didn't hear you. Say it again.
Alumni, like somebody who
Oh,
graduated.
I think we've already had that. There's it'll be spoken about in one of the other goals, some incredible things that are going on at the high school, and alumni have already been in and sharing some of their unbelievable accomplishments. We have such impressive kids. It's pretty impressive.
Thank you.
Okay.
Questions? That's it. Same for me.
So I've been in administrative meetings where Corey has had us all stand up and do exercises. He's the next one. So it's possible he's going to ask you to stand up and move around. All right. So thank you for having me here. Looking very much forward to sharing out on where we are with Goal 2. So you've had a little bit of time to look at this slide. Some of what I shared last spring to many of you that were on the board, I have an opportunity now to say, how did we follow through with that? So we did in fact launch a new website. We received, via survey, we received feedback from our stakeholders, and the feedback was great. And I did share this, that they said exactly what we set out to accomplish with the new website, we were hearing that feedback. You could search, you could locate things simpler, browsing experience much better, and actually one of the things that Mr. Brooks brought forward when we were taking a look at this is, so many of us will utilize our phones when we're looking at information on the website. Our former site was not as good as our current site. I think our current site has done a wonderful job of taking the information, and you could view it very cleanly and simply on your phone. And that is something that's very important. Yeah, any questions so far?
One quick question.
Yeah.
What would you say is your main means of communication? Is it the website? Is it the social media? Is it all the channels posting?
Yeah, we're gonna have a slide that's gonna talk about the survey that we sent to stakeholders. Many of you probably participate in it for the second straight year, and I have some of that information. It really depends on the information that we're sending out. We'll determine how folks want that information. Yeah. So this was a commitment that we had really even before the strategic plan, but we were able through the strategic plan to really put it down, take a look at it, and have other people understand it. So one of the things we talked about last year when I stood before you was utilizing all of our modes of communication. So when we take a look at what our principals are doing and what our superintendent is doing, we are keeping current or utilizing Instagram accounts or making sure that Facebook, LinkedIn, that's all there. And when you view the website of your child, or if you want to take a look at the larger scale look, district-wide, you could see that. What I also want to make you aware of is the work that our principals are doing with communication. So often, and I realized this last year when I presented twice, I had overlooked some things. So things that I want you to be aware of, you're receiving it sometimes, and if you're not the one receiving it, your students are receiving it. So it could be those newsletters that your principals send to you, the grade level assemblies where we are disseminating important information and we are communicating with students. Sometimes it's very important for our principals to be sending out very topic-specific e-blasts. They're not standard. They don't go into a school year expecting that to send them, but they do in fact send them when it's very, very important and information needs to be shared out. The monthly meetings with our PTO, PTA, the involvement of SEPTA as well, all ways that we're disseminating information, and morning meetings to our students, and podcasts. So we've had a principal do a podcast this year, multiple podcasts, I should say. This, I want to thank members of the board from last spring. So I had shared a very similar slide, and the board said, hey, why don't you get information in addition to what your principals are doing, what they really think are important information, ask parents. So I said, great idea, easily to implement. That's where the sharing out is so critical with the stakeholders. Sometimes the most obvious things, I'm not saying you overlook them, but it's good that when things are pointed out. So kudos to you all and to those that served on the board back in the spring when I did this. So both the superintendent and the principals did this. So they sent something specific to their schools, or in the case of the superintendent, to the district as a whole. What are some topics that you'd be very interested in being presented to you coming to our roundtable? Then they took the time to break it down. The principals, I believe, did it in one of the structures we have in place, which is our monthly principals meeting. And they were able to identify some very common themes that were apparent from the parents in each of the schools. Then they came up with a very good idea, which I will share shortly. We'll first start with our superintendent. So superintendent will be doing her first roundtable of the year, March 4th, and the focus will be on curriculum and instruction. And then she will have something in the spring, so later in the year, and that topic is still to be discussed, or I should say determined. So our principals, when I referenced earlier about them being part of the principal meeting, taking a look, what they realized is there were very common themes. So when they were taking a look at what their parents had shared, they realized that mental health, building citizenship, and transitions. Transitions came up in every single building. They came up with the idea, if you recall last year when I shared out with you, we had very structured parameters on how we were going to do this. It was going to be one in person, specific time, structured in a way where presentation would be X amount of minutes, the Q&A session would be about 15. And then we were going to do a very similar practice virtually. Well, this year I said, let's explore, and I even shared that with all of you in the spring. Let's come up with how you want to do it, whatever level of creativity you want to implement, or if you really feel like that in-person, very similar to last year, is the approach with presentation and Q&A, let's do it. Let's serve the parents of the schools. They said, what if we do the 5 of us together? I said, that's a great idea. So that was something, again, just as a reminder, last year was the first year this district had ever done roundtables to that extent. I have never heard, not to say it hasn't existed, I have never heard of a district where they have all 5 principals coordinating and providing an opportunity for whoever wants to come, meet with all of them at the same time, and then in a very intimate setting, which turned out to be pretty intimate, ask the questions that they wanted to, specific to that principal, and realize when you're in the presence of those 5, I have an opportunity, yes, to see my child's principal, and then depending on what grade level your child's in, I can see the next 1, 2, 3 principals. It was a great night, it really was. And those of you that were there, thank you so much for coming. It's something that the principals absolutely spent a lot of time preparing for. I think it went over in time because of the questions that were coming from the participants. And it's something that the principals are going to absolutely digest, analyze, and it's something we're going to probably lead our next principal meeting with, providing opportunities, something similar. But again, that second roundtable, it probably won't look like that just because it's something that the principals will decide to do something else for no other reason. I think it was successful in conveying a very clear message. We have 5 principals that communicate. We have 5 principals that put the students above everything else. And in a district, that's all you could ask for. prioritizing students' needs. Possibly, Julius, what you were asking, but I don't want to presume. So for the second year last year, we did administer the MSPRA survey. And the goal of this survey was we wanted stakeholders to tell us how they want information provided to them. Where are they seeking out? So is it the website? Is it email? And what I did was I broke it down. This is probably the most heavy text of any of my slides, and it's very similar to what I did last year. I just want you to see what everyone said. So they said, when we want information on general district news or school events, we want email. If you recall last year, before we transitioned to a new website, I was before you when I said our arts and our athletics are something that we need to spotlight. I had done a pretty obvious job. I think you all know MSG is not in Montgomery, and we know that the Met's not in Montgomery. So I talked about, well, what other better way to be entertained? Go to the athletic events that we have with our high schoolers, participate in the art shows, participate in the music, and the plays. We prioritize that. We want the community to know about that, not just if you're a high school parent. So when we take a look at text messaging, you might have received a text message yesterday, possibly our superintendent alluded to the fact. They were very specific. If you're going to do something serious, you're going to let us know that there's going to be an early dismissal, late arrival, or there's going to be a cancellation. This is how we want to be communicated with. And then, of course, Genesis has always remained the source for student and academic progress, other than the teacher themselves, of course. So we are trying our best to stay in alignment with what everyone had said and what they want. And then there are instances, of course, where we're using multiple modes of communication. This is something I brought forward last year in a very similar, during a board meeting. The community tasks us with find opportunities for students. So this is unlike what you heard Ms. Borland talk about. This is more having our students going out. So last year we put together a survey and we administered the survey to last year's 9th and 10th graders. And we had results we identified and I had shared with you last year. The area that students are most interested or they expressed was STEM, so science, math, that area. We said it's ideal, let's do this again. So we kept the same grade bands, 9th and 10th, with the understanding that this year, 3 of the grade levels would have participated or been provided the opportunity to be in that. So we were able to capture our current 9th graders, our current 10th graders twice, this year and last, and then our current 11th graders. Very similar responses. I want to now talk about how we are going to be connected with our Montgomery Business Association. So I had the pleasure of attending a meeting at the high school. It was, I think it might have been before winter break. Needless to say, I was able to connect with members of the MBA. I know we have multiple MBAs, but when I say that, I'm saying Montgomery Business Association. Right? And they've been wonderful. So I was able to have another meeting with a smaller group of them. And really what we're going to do is we're going to get together. I'm going to share, I gave an overview of the data that we received, both last year and this year. I gave an overview. They were happy to hear that. They had shared about some new businesses that will be coming into town, as well as those businesses that are pretty stable and have been a part of the MBA. So our next steps are meet with them, most likely bring in Mr. Delgado because there was some conversation regarding school counseling and perhaps Ms. Pino as well because she is our high school principal, and identify what are the connections we can make for our students with our local businesses. So are there mentoring opportunities, potentially maybe there's just work opportunities where students could learn a lot from that as well, and we're keeping it from within. So something I'm very enthusiastic about. I seem to be the one delivering. I just want to point that to all of you because Deneen, I think you asked the question that I now have the opportunity to talk about, right? Okay. So the Lunch and Learn series is something that Mr. Delgado and his team started last year. So this year, we've had the opportunity, or I should say our students at the high school have had the opportunity on 2 occasions one in January, and then one as recently as this month. When Mr. Delgado sets this up, he provides students with two options. So the options that were provided in January, it happened to be a former grad, 2005 class. I would identify that area would be in finance. And then the second option that day was someone that we would identify in the medical field. So students sign up during their lunch period, so they're giving an opportunity, they're provided an opportunity to sit for the more or less the bulk of that lunch period and listen to these individuals speak about their life, probably when they were high schoolers, post high school, then going into their career. And then as recently as this month, we also had we had two other individuals. One was our director of security, Tom Wayne. So he shared his experience in law enforcement, what got him there. And then we also had a very successful, and I think everyone's successful in their own right, very successful member of the class of 2007, also now a resident in town, Catherine Connolly. She's an entrepreneur, and she achieved high level of success in the tech field. Here's what I want to share. I had the opportunity to be in both rooms, and there was great things to take away. The thing that I took away the most was both individuals, completely different fields, talked about support, how critical support was for their success. And I think it really resonated with the students. Now, they both did a wonderful job of saying they had support, but sometimes you have to have your eyes open and realize that that support is there. And they were terrific. And I'm sure Mr. Delgado, if you ask him questions, he can go into more detail. I think this is a wonderful thing we're providing to our students in the high school. I think it's inspiring, and it's something that, you know, I'm really happy we brought to the district. It's great. This one, okay, so this objective 4 was something that the community brought forward as something that they wanted us to take a look at. I stood before you last year and said, if you remember, this is where I had a lot of slides. I broke down the amount of usage in all of our schools, how often the schools and the facilities are being utilized by outside organizations. It became very apparent, and I had shared that with all of you, that we now needed to transition into another area of this to gain success. And that was where it's going to be moved into the Operations, Facilities, and Finance Committee, OFF. And my understanding is discussion on facility usage has begun as early as with the new OFF committee. And then with outside organizations that we welcome, they come in. There's also the piece where we want to make sure that we have secure areas, both for the groups that are coming in, as well as for our facilities as a whole. So we took the responsibility of realizing that's important. We had our director of security meet with the local fire inspector and just discuss about gates. And gates are important because it gives an opportunity for the outside group to utilize the facility that they need to utilize while also keeping the other areas of the school, you know, secure. I'll say no more on that. All right, this one is challenging. So this one, I am optimistic, but it's taking, as you can imagine, it's just taking a little bit longer, okay? So you didn't need me to share this with you. We're aware of this. This is something that is not just in Montgomery, not just in New Jersey, but nationwide. So that doesn't mean that we quit and say it's just gonna be what it's gonna be. Quite the opposite. That's not how we operate here. It's not how you operate as board members. So we are going to address the sharp decline in volunteerism, all right? So what we want to take a look at beyond our conversations, and I've had wonderful conversations with our parent organizations, PTO, PTA, SEPTA, wonderful conversations with our administrators who head the boosters, both athletic as well as our music boosters, and I intend to have even deeper conversations with members of those booster clubs. Let's present information is where we are right now. And we want to utilize our website. So there will be, hopefully in the very near future, we'll have an additional tab on our website, which will be dedicated to volunteerism. We will talk generally about the benefits of volunteerism, then the level of comfort that all of those organizations that I mentioned in listing all the opportunities that they provide students in their own way. They will communicate that on this website for all to see. And I think we just take certain things for just like they're always gonna happen. Someone's always gonna do it. What we realize, everyone that I've been able to speak with, is let's inform folks what is being done. Yes, there's a lot of work that goes into play, and again, in a sometimes maybe assertive way, maybe a direct way, let everyone know that this just doesn't happen. And not to be negative, we don't want to say it won't happen if, but the reality is we do need volunteerism. Certain things do need to occur with the support of others. And we will be respectful, we will be informative first and foremost when that tab is created and that site is put up, with the understanding that that's something we can always improve and we can move upon. But we just felt very strongly that others need to know what few are doing in order to get others to participate, and that few becomes a little bit larger. This is our commitment to our partnership with our township. So the work that we started last year, in particular with our communications specialist and with his counterpart at the township level, so the community information officer, that has continued. The meetings, whether they be in person, virtual, or over the phone, seeing that it's important for us to have things on the township website. It's also important for us to have things on our website that the township is putting forward. And one of those things that you can see is kindergarten registration is really important. That just to name one. And then continuing, link to the Township Weekly e-bulletin. That appears on our weekly e-news and as well as our website. And we're promoting several township-sponsored events this school year. And this is just an example of a couple that we're promoting as well. So it's really that community engagement, that partnership, and the emphasis on communication. All right? Get ready, because I think Corey's gonna have you do, what are you doing, push-ups, punches, what are you doing? Sit-ups. Okay. So before he does that, what questions do you have?
Going back to the decline of volunteerism, or can you give examples of specific feedback that you got that contribute to that?
I think it really depends on the group and the activity. I think I'm going to try to generalize it as such. People are extremely busy. They are trying to do their best for their children, and they're trying to meet all the needs of their children. In turn, they may not understand that they are surrounded by people who have that same mindset. And they are trying to do best for their children, and they're also trying to do best for the students of Montgomery, whether it be at the grade level, at a school level. So I don't want the frustration to continue for the people that have put so much time and energy in, but I also want to recognize that parents do have a lot on their plate. So I know I'm not really answering your question greatly, but that's really what's driving what we intend to do on the website. Let's inform, be aware of this, invite you to participate in this, understand that this is something that truthfully is purely driven for students. No one is getting accolades. They're not in it for that. They're doing it to maintain, in some cases, traditions, wonderful activities. Sometimes they're 20 plus years old. Sometimes they just started and we just want to maintain it. So I think everyone has a different reason. And I would say that, generalizing, that's what it is.
I have one small question.
Sure.
You mentioned MBA, Montgomery
Yes.
Business Association.
Yes.
You work with them for mentorship and all. Do we work with the local government for any kind of mentorship? If students who want to get involved in politics or anything like that, do we work with the local governments too?
I'm going to say no to that, but then I might be challenged and say that there's something that we have done. I'm not aware of it. That's something that we'll definitely get back to this larger group with in order to provide you the answer. Yeah.
I have two questions. The first one is you mentioned the 5 principal night, the round table night, and I also heard from the community it went really well, and they really appreciate
Great.
the 5 principals stayed a little bit longer to address their questions. So how many parents showed up in that?
So intimacy is the word that I want to emphasize. that we were under a hand, we'll say double handfuls, a little bit under, but sometimes few people can do a lot, right, Melissa?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so that's at least my next question
Yes.
is there any way we can, I know many of us are working parents, exactly
Yes.
as you mentioned, a lot of things are happening. Are there any ways we can think about to engage them?
So, great question. And as I said, we're going to come together as a principal. The principals will come together during principal meeting. Superintendent, myself, and Ms. Mattis, the other assistant superintendent. We'll have an opportunity. We were all there. Let's talk about the evening. Let's talk about how potentially, when we're providing that to the community, how can we get more people to come? So it is a challenge, but ultimately, and I hate to use survey because that's not always the answer, we're probably going to lean a little bit on maybe you all and just ultimately reach out. Like, what were some of the challenges? But again, I know it's the winter months are challenging. The activities, I think everyone has their children in so many activities. So I get it, but we're going to work together and find that out. Maybe we'll lean on you a little bit as well. Just say, give us some other insight. Because that's how we get things accomplished, right? Sharon? Yeah.
So, sorry, I have one more question. You mentioned when you observed the high school events and both alumni talked about the support. Could you clarify a little bit, like, what do they mean by support? The mean, more like when they're frustrated? I'm asking this because, you know, it's very interesting. I present a similar topic at Rutgers too, with a lot of administrators. One interesting finding, we find that the student learning attitude is a significant predictor for the first year retention. And one of the survey questions did ask about support. So I just find out the question is asking, I'm aware of the care and the support of those around me. So is that similar to what you mean by support?
Yeah, off the top of my head, I'll tell you, one of the presenters talked about the support of a high school teacher coach who was instrumental in getting them into college, then talked about the support that he received while he was in the police academy. The other presenter talked about, really touching, about the support she had received from her mother through friends, peers, and professors. And that support sometimes, and they both spoke about that in their own way, sometimes you don't recognize it in the moment. Sometimes you realize it after the fact, but it's there. And we have all been, you know, the benefits of receiving support. What do you do with that support? And that's what they talked about too. Hey, we received the support, we then focused, and then we were able to move forward. But that support's critical. And I just found it so interesting because on the surface, it was completely different pathways. But that one thing, and again, I did try to split my time. I think I was very fortunate to hear a common theme. And that's reality, right? I think we all could probably tell a story on like the people who supported us, and then you're like, wow, I didn't even realize that person supported me. It didn't seem as obvious, but it was actually very critical to us getting through a tough time or even really being successful in a particular venture. And I'm sure that's what you're doing, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, that's awesome.
Thank you. So
Yeah.
so if I may allow to add a little bit to that,
Sure.
is I think support is one type of the aspect in the measurement field. We talk about this learning attitude. In that, I want to share this is because I consider we're a good community, and we want to support is not just support, but also, you know, based on what the research found, the students' curiosity, you know, they're willing to work hard, they're willing to take time to follow up interested things that they mentioned in the class, motivated to do things, and they are facing challenging, they never give up, and they're persistent pursuing their dreams to the end. And often, as you said, people give them good advice to help them to succeed. All those things, when you survey those students, freshmen, we call them learning attitude. The more they're self-rated them more positive on the scales for all those things I mentioned, they're more likely to survive through the 4-year college. So I just want to share that message with all of us, you know, with parents and students. So that's how we call positive learning attitude.
I like it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just had a comment on volunteering because I am a former synagogue president, and in my job I also help organize people to volunteer. And since COVID, it's not just you, there really is a decline in volunteering. So I just want to add that that is a national problem. It's not just here.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Corey, just going back to the 5 principals round table, have you, I said Corey, I'm so sorry, I was thinking of Corey, I'm sorry. Damien, I apologize.
No problem.
Going back to the 5 principals round table, have you considered, or did you consider a hybrid approach, especially with parents with younger kids? You know, it's hard for them to either get a babysitter or, you know, bring their kids into school. Have you considered a hybrid approach for that?
I think it's something we'll talk about. The goal of that meeting was that in-person feel, which again, I recognize potentially then doesn't, that hybrid. It was really important to the principals. We supported them too, that in-person, and often the turnout number doesn't match the individuals who say they're gonna come. And for good reason, things happen. So that's just the reality of it. But yeah, we're gonna discuss a lot of things that transpired in there, and then just talk about what will that second one look like for each principal. What will the first one look like, you know, obviously for the superintendent, and the second one as well. But it was good. It was very good. Yeah. Hey, good.
I don't know if this is for you, Damien,
Oh,
or for you,
sure.
Corey, but on the topic of mentorship, would you be considering having a dedicated person in the school being in charge of how to connect students with mentors? Would that individual or that office be open to having our former graduates who are in college and are about to graduate college, are looking for ways to connect with how do I, like, this is my major, I want to look for a career, I don't know who I can talk to. Can they come back to the school and say, can you connect me to somebody in the community who I can have conversation with about what my major could be a career path towards? I bring that up because I had somebody who graduated in 22, not my son, somebody else from 22 who reached out to me that I've met once or twice and asked for a meeting. So I met with her, I talked to her about her career path, I connected her with somebody from my organization, and it helped her. So I'm just curious about, you know, opportunities for also former graduates from Montgomery who would like some guidance as well.
Yeah, I think that the benefit of working with the local business association is so much is going to come out of it that probably we're not even thinking about right now. And that's how I would answer your question. I think we're going to have a very, it'll be definitely goal-oriented approach in collaboration with the MBA. And then I think the things that will come out of that potentially could address what you're saying. But I think going into what we're going to do is really take a look at those currently at MHS and see what we could do. But I can't imagine, just in my 2 brief meetings that I had with the members of the MBA, I can't imagine something beyond what the 3 of us were talking about today. What won't go beyond that. I envision something. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but it definitely, the focus will be our current students, and then we'll see where it goes from there. Yeah.
And Cookie's question, I have follow-up questions, more for current high schoolers. Since we have a collaboration relationship with the MBA, do we consider like establish some, offer some internship opportunities for the current high schoolers through that channel?
Yeah, so that's the goal. The goal would be our current students, depending on what it is that would be offered, whether it's a mentorship or potentially like a job opportunity. Of course, that'll be age specific, but that's our goal. Yeah, that is the goal. Absolutely. All right, thank you.
Thank you, David.
Okay, you manifested me, so here I am. All right, and what Damien was referring to is something called a brain break, which is different than a bathroom break. It's different than a water break, but it is absolutely necessary because we as educators often, when students aren't in the room, we forget what good pedagogy is and we don't model it. And we know there's science Dr. Wang will know this, that the brain can't take in any more information, even the adult brain at a certain point. So a brain break is brief, it includes something kinesthetic, and it takes your mind intentionally somewhere else. So I'm going to shave 2 minutes off of my presentation to sacrifice for a 1 minute brain break. Are you ready? Are you with me? Nobody's going to be embarrassed or anything like that. And I'm going to encourage everybody behind me to join in as well. So when I ask you to, you're going to stand up. You're going to spin 360 degrees counterclockwise. Then you might need to continue spinning a little bit so that you are not facing anyone. With your eyes open or closed, you are going to spell your first and last name backwards, just to yourself. Okay, ready? We're going to stand up, 360 degree spin counterclockwise. Put your back to the crowd, spell your name in your brain backwards. When you come back to facing the group, we know you were successful, or you think you were successful, but you're not.
I got checked because I don't I speak Chinese as character.
Okay. Well, if we would have asked Maria to spell her name in Chinese, that would have been a good brain break. Okay. Does anybody want to try to spell their name out loud backwards? Anyone confident?
You just said you wouldn't embarrass us.
I'm just volunteering. Okay, no volunteers? Okay, that's your brain break. So Kelly and I lead Goal 3, the Goal 3 team. I'm going to give you a brief, Julius, I told you there's a minute tonight. That's it, 1 minute. But typically, honestly, when we went to teaching in the block schedule, we knew we had to start teaching differently. And you have to understand the science of the brain in order to be an effective teacher, whether you're in a block schedule or a traditional schedule. And we know for the adolescent brain, not much different than the adult brain, you only get about 30 minutes to give new information. After that, you better reset the brain and then go ahead again. So we breached that limit, I think, by a lot, but we're going to try to be interesting, engaging, and brief here for Goal 3. So Goal 3 is about supporting our students' well-being and fostering healthy school climates. And I'm fine if anybody wants to stand up and listen, that works too. Our an action from last year that was referenced several times this year, I just want to reiterate, we're not talking about actions from last year. So our career exploration goal last year led to that Lunch and Learn program that was referenced, and that was talked about a bunch today. This year, to support mental health and physical well-being, we implemented new cell phone guidelines in grades 7 through 12, and we're analyzing the impact. I want to give a shout out to Ms. Pino and Mr. Accardi and their building teams because they vigilantly enforced these new guidelines. And fortunately, our students, and kudos to our students and our parents who were very receptive and very cooperative. And I think a big part of the reason that it was successful is because we took our time to explain the why. There's a lot of science out there that tells us misuse of social media, misuse of cell phones leads to a lot of problems. And we as a school, we need to own our part and do our best to mitigate that risk. So the new cell phone guidelines are in place. Students are reporting that they are less distracted and more engaged in class. They are reporting that they appreciate us for lifting the pressure for them to have immediate responses to all of those notifications that are typically going off. Staff has reported students being more engaged. Staff has reported students being more interactive even during the non-structured time when they are allowed to have their phones, like in lunch and study hall. So really good things coming of it. Staff has also noticed a phenomenon. No one needs to go to the bathroom anymore. It's amazing that there's a connection between biology and cell phone. You didn't know that was a thing, but that's a thing. We're continuing, our digital wellness committee is continuing our family outreach. We'll have a 4th family event on April 22nd, so we encourage you to save the date. We have some information coming out. It's called Beyond the Screens, Parenting in the Digital Age. The conversation continues. So we've had well over 120 attendees for all 3 of our previous events. It's a topic that parents want to engage with us in, so we're going to keep on bringing it. The SEL curriculum and SEL assessments have been developed and piloted in grades K through 5. The assessment has, and that's been telling to try to evaluate our students' social and emotional learning. Is not easy, but we're having some early success. And we have launched our peer suicide prevention program, Hope Squads, in grades 5 through 12. This winter, we've had the nomination selection process. We had our family information meetings for all 3 buildings. Those were in-person meetings, well over 50 attendees for each of those, so really well received, and those programs are off and running, or that program is off and running. Encouraging responsibility and accountability is our second objective. The vice principals are continuing to work on the codes of conduct that guide student behavior in our schools. So they have found some disconnects and they are making some connections. Has been some improvements made to our codes of conduct where they are more developmentally appropriate. There is a developmentally appropriate progression for consequences. There's common language, including a lot of restorative activities, not just traditional consequences. The core values at the school levels are being promoted intensely by staff at this point in the year. You could ask any student in the Village Elementary School to tell you Blazers' beliefs, and they will tell you, and they will be able to relate it back to experiences they're having in their day-to-day life as a Village Elementary School student. That's just one example of what's happening in all the buildings. And in spite of all that work, we still are dealing with very challenging student behaviors, especially in our elementary schools. Montgomery is not immune. That's happening across the country. We're seeing an uptick in challenging behaviors, especially among our elementary school students. We brought in some really proven and innovative outside consultants and trainers to work with staff K through 12 on classroom management strategies, really focused on helping students who are dysregulated to get regulated. And I'll spare you the details on that, but it's been really well received by our staff, and to see some of the strategies in play has been absolutely amazing. Our third objective is about promoting and celebrating diversity and inclusivity. So you recently had a presentation from some of our unified leaders, as the high school received a really amazing recognition as a Unified Champion School. We are expanding our Unified program, and we launched this year Unified PE at Lower Middle School. We launched Unified dance classes at Montgomery High School, and we put our existing Unified PE program at Upper Middle School through a lot of curriculum revisions. We're in like the 4th year of that now. Students are coming up with different needs, so we put a lot of time and attention into the Unified program at UMS, and it's been great. And our superintendent continues to put out a newsletter twice a year celebrating accomplishments through district publications. Mr. Papa talked about the website. We're going to start doing some more things out there on the website, pushing out a lot of the great work that's going on. And our last objective has to do with developing a respectful community that uplifts all members. Let's find out how respectful our community is. Let's get some baseline data. It's been a little while since we've done a climate survey here in Montgomery, so this spring we'll be launching the New Jersey School Climate Initiative Survey that is developed through a partnership of Rutgers and the Department of Education, New Jersey Department of Education. We piloted it a few years ago in one of our schools, and really we saw the value in the way that it collated the data and the reports that we were able to get back from it. It was a really useful platform. It's free, so the price tag is good, and a lot of New Jersey school districts have gone to it. So this spring we'll be doing a climate survey for staff, students, and parents. And we're looking forward to letting you know what the results look like. So we'll take those results in the spring, we'll work on them throughout the summer, with collaborative school-based teams to put together some goals for the fall. That's goal 3. In a couple of minutes or less. Any questions?
Yeah, you mentioned that last survey you said to staff, students, parents too, or no parents?
Yes.
Or parents too? Thank you.
For students, it starts at grade 3.
The cell phone the cell phone policy, right? We're gonna have to modify that again because it doesn't comport with the new rules that will have to be implemented.
Yeah, so legislation is out there. We learned that a revised guidelines is coming out, so we'll stay up to date and we'll comply with whatever we need to comply with. But we did learn that the original guidelines are already being revised. So, you know, before we jump the gun and do some things that maybe we don't need to do or don't want to do, we're going to wait and see when this final set of guidelines comes out. But we did make significant changes in just this 1 year, and we're really pleased with the results. So we're going in the right direction.
Two quick questions. The one on the survey, the school climate survey. What would you say that you'd hope to get back as far as the number of responses in terms of how other school districts have used this particular platform before? What do they see, and how can we help you to get as much as possible back? Because I know the more data you get, the better your results are going to be, the better the outcomes are going to be.
That's a good question. We haven't really put too much thought to that yet. The students will be able to opt out of, obviously it's anonymous and voluntary. So the students will be able to opt out of taking it. We'll have the students in a very controlled setting, so it'll be easy for them to take it. It's not going to be homework. I don't know what the right number is, Maria. It's a good question.
Like the parents and things like that, like really trying to make sure that, that we get enough responses.
Well, we'll be strategic. We'll have follow-ups. It doesn't have to be a one-shot deal. So our goal is end the last week in April, first week in May, to administer it. So if you have some ideas on how we can entice people to take it, we'll see. This community tends to participate, so I'm optimistic. But we'll see.
Could launch on Genesis to align with when report cards are released. Like some reason that parents are already going on and looking at something. I'm thinking about the same way that in order to get your student's schedule, you have to go through some reviews. Maybe you open the survey and you say, no, I don't want to participate. And
But just at least acknowledge that there's a
acknowledge
survey.
that it's there.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, it's not a bad
So you
idea.
need a parent's consent too to participate, and the student doesn't.
Yeah, it's voluntary and anonymous, and so yes, parents could say, I prefer my child not take that. Yes, so there's an opt-out for students.
And you mentioned a couple of years ago, our school district participated in this survey too. Was the response rate high?
It was high, yes, it was high. So I was the principal at the upper middle school at the time, and we were one of 15 schools in the state that piloted it, and we had a very good response. And we learned a lot from the survey. One of the things we learned from the survey is while the adults in the building thought most of our students felt very connected to at least one adult in the building, the students didn't necessarily agree with that. So that was really interesting for us. So we were very intentional in the following year in how do we foster that connection. We think we did, but the students are telling us we didn't. So that was just one example of something that was very tangible that we were able to be very intentional about going forward in the next year. But it measures more than just relationships. I mean, that's part of it. But just the overall experience that parents and students and staff are having as being part of the Montgomery Township School District community is something we should want to know more about. So we'll find out.
So it's anonymous, they don't have to write their name on it?
Oh, it's absolutely anonymous. Absolutely anonymous. For everybody, yes.
One other thing about, I think it was objective 3 on Unified. Just as a perception, I feel like I've heard from being at some of the SEPTA meetings and things like that, obviously everyone loves everything that we've done with Unified and the after school, like everything. But there's like a drop off or less of an opportunity for kids who were really, really robustly involved in it in 7th and 8th grade to continue on that pathway in 9th and 10th, and then like it picks up again in 11th, but like that momentum somehow gets lost.
There's
So
a gap. Yeah, there's a gap there.
Yeah, if there's a way for you to.
We've heard it loud and clear. So one example is this Unified Dance Elective. So we had some 8th grade students who were very involved in the UMS Unified PE program who signed up to be part of the Unified Dance class. So that was one way, but that was, if you remember, that was all a pretty late addition last year. So more opportunities like that we hope to create because they feel so connected, and then we disconnect them for 2 years whether they like it or not. So we do need to find some more opportunities for underclassmen at the high school. Yeah, absolutely. Anything I missed?
Covered it all.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, thank you. Thank you, Corey.
And that concludes the superintendent report.
Thank you, Superintendent Blackman. Next up, committee representative reports. First up, MTA report. Mr. Rizzo.
All right. At least there wasn't robotics before me this time. This is a little easier to follow. All right. First of all, congratulations to all of our governors, teachers, and ESPs of the year again for their awards. We really appreciate them. Also, I'd like to echo the sincere gratitude to our grounds maintenance and custodial staff for extraordinary work that they have done throughout the recent winter storms. These individuals are essential and vital to the success of our district. I want to especially thank the men and women who reported during the recent blizzard and worked long hours to ensure that our buildings and grounds were safe and ready to reopen today. So a huge shout out to them. Last month, President Todd, you asked me about Read Across America. It begins next week. I appreciate that many of our board members have already signed up to participate in the event. I know that all of the classes will be excited to have their guest readers. If you still like to sign up, Stacy would be more than happy to have you. So just let her know and she'll be able to fill out the form for you and get you to a classroom. The final part of my report this evening, I would like to briefly acknowledge that once again, we are entering budget season. I do not envy the responsibility of the board, nor the difficult decisions that will be needed to make over the next couple months. What I do know is that last year funds were left on the table, and as a result, the district lost 17 positions. The impact of those losses is felt every day by our students, staff, and community. As a district, we cannot continue to absorb setbacks of this magnitude, as they are not sustainable in the long term. Additionally, like districts across the state, are facing a significant growing health care cost crisis. I attended a meeting last evening with local, county, and state leaders focused on this issue. The continued rise in premiums will have a substantial effect on districts' budgets and on the funds available for other priorities. Now more than ever, it is critical that we make thoughtful, strategic fiscal decisions as we navigate these challenges. My requests for the board are straightforward. First is that this budget process be approached collaboratively, ensuring that all perspectives and relevant information are considered before decisions are made. Second, that the district pause and carefully hold off on all financial decisions until the budget is finalized and ready for implementation. This includes monetary decisions both large and small, such as bonus, compensation adjustments, or destination conferences for administration. Whether they are long-term fiscal obligations or involve discretionary spending, we need to hold off on these decisions until we know the hit our budget is going to take. We need this to ensure that Montgomery stays a top public school. I've said before, I do not envy the circumstances that you are in, but I trust the course that you choose will be thoughtfully considered, both immediate impacts and the long-term consequences for our students, staff, and community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rizzo. Do we have any board member, delegate, or representative reports this evening? Hearing none, we'll move into board committee reports. First up, Assessment, Curriculum, and Instruction Committee. Board Member Ward.
Hello, I'm speaking for Christina this evening. The ACI meeting met last Friday on February 20th. The first item that we discussed was the K-4 feasibility. In January of 2025, the administration began meeting to intentionally analyze the feasibility of reconfiguration of Orchard Hill Elementary School and Village Elementary School as two K-4 schools. The current configuration of Orchard Hill is pre-K through 2 and Village is 3rd and 4th grades, and discuss the potential benefits for the students. The feedback loop was created to gain input from the administration, including the business and transportation offices, staff, and architects familiar with the physical layout of the schools. Based on the feedback collected and the educational research shared, it leads the administration to believe that the potential benefits are many while the anticipated challenges are manageable. Some of the considerations discussed: developmentally appropriate elementary setting, fewer transitions for students, stronger relationships and a continuity of support, an ease for families with engagement and convenience. Then also we need to look at the moving costs, the building updates, impact on transportation, and determining an efficient and equitable zoning. There will be a mechanism for community input, and looking at the timeline, the decision would need to be made in the spring of 2026 for 2027 through 2028 academic year start. We also reviewed statewide assessments. Mr. Papa shared the administration dates, and
the newly released testing timelines from NJDOE for the NJSLA Adaptive, ELA, and Math, as well as the NJ GPA Adaptive Assessments. Information was provided about the NJSLA Science, Access, and DLM assessments. Schools will provide their students and parents with testing schedules. Schools are developing a testing schedule that is going to be consolidated, yet not overwhelming for the students due to the testing duration. Data will be provided by the state in what the state considers a timely fashion, which isn't always what we consider a timely fashion. The new grade 8 social studies textbook, Voices and Perspectives, United States History, published by McGraw-Hill, was reviewed. The resource would be used in the spring of this school year. The resource aligns with the curriculum we currently have and is aligned with potential changes from the state as well. Both 8th and 9th grade supervisors work together on the choice of the book, and then looking to how we can integrate this in other grades. The next year we'll consider a similar resource for grades 6 and 7. An update from Hope Squad. This has been launched in all 3 schools, LMS, UMS, and MHS, as Corey mentioned. It has been well received. The advisors went through the nomination process, the selection process, and the acceptance of an invitation from the students. Family nights were held and had good attendance at all 3 schools. This month we had the first meetings and trainings, and thankfully, thankful to the sponsors of the program who were also able to attend all 3 meetings. Special education update. There was a transition fair that was going to be held on the 21st, 10 to 1 at MHS. The fair was hosted for students with disabilities, and families were able to get information on community organizations and post-graduation opportunities for those students. READ 180 pilot for LMS, UMS, and MHS. A training took place for language arts replacement teachers. Teacher feedback was positive, and they were very excited about starting this program. Teachers will be piloting the program over the next few months to support instruction. Any questions?
Hi, I have a question. I saw the textbook evaluation form was provided in the system. So was there discussion around the textbook evaluation form, and there's a scoring rubric that's developed by our own school teachers, or it's adopted from some resources?
I believe it's our schools that we've developed it in-house.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's all. Thank you.
Of note on that form, actually, just because I was really pleased to see that both the upper middle school and the high school supervisors were really excited about this program. A couple of things to note about it that I think are going to be really great are it has like an adaptability of reading level for students, so that if the Lexile score on something could be adapted so the content is there and presented at a high level, but the readability is matched to each individual student. I thought that was really great. I just want to reiterate that comment. And also the only areas that it fell short of a 5 out of 5 was the durability, which won't be too difficult because the actual books will be staying in the classroom, and there's an online component for all students to have. And the other part was the alignment, which I think is because of the fact that our 6th and 7th are also from 20 years ago. So this is really, really great. I'm excited that we're going to have a new and up-to-date book for our history courses in middle school.
I have a follow-up questions on that. How many books were looked into before deciding this?
3.
3 books.
Yeah, on the form it gives you the other 2 listed.
I see. So they went deep into all 3 books, what they're going to offer, and then they decide on this one. Okay.
Any other questions?
Good question. So on the topic of the K through 4 feasibility, sounds like a great initiative. I guess what are the next steps, and is one of those steps like it says look into moving costs, like an assessment? Is this working in collaboration with the OP committee to see what it would take? But I guess is that part of the next step?
Yes.
Very good.
Looking at the budget.
Very good. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Board Member Warland. Next up, Operations Facility and Finance Committee, Board Member Franco Herman.
The OFF committee had our first meeting on February 17, and the meeting opened with a series of administrative housekeeping items from Mr. Italiano to establish procedural clarity before moving to the main agenda, which was the development of the 26-27 school budget, which is still being worked on by the superintendent and her team. Mr. Italiano outlined the district's primary revenue streams, including state aid, where the figures have not been released by the governor's office, but we expect that to remain the same, almost the same. Tax levies and outside tuition from students who are not Montgomery residents but would like to go to school in our really good district. On the expenditure side, the committee discussed increases driven by what we already anticipate payroll increase, but also healthcare costs. That is a nationwide issue across both the private and public sector. Superintendent McLaughlin provided a historical overview of the rising expenses in health and benefit plans of the district, and also from where we were at before self-insured to now where we're at with the shared health insurance plan. To address these budgetary pressures, budget meetings have been held by the superintendent and the business administrator with all the departments to identify priorities, potential cuts, and even looking at various facility projects that could be put on hold. These were reviewed for inclusion in the budget draft. So when Mr. Italiano's office is ready to share the draft of the budget, I welcome each member of this board to please meet with Mr. Italiano. He will offer opportunities and times for each of us to sit with him as he goes through the budget. I think it's a great exercise. I sat down with him for 2.5 hours a couple of weeks ago just to get the lay of the land on OFF, and he's kind of geeked out on the program that he's using for accounting that is very specific, line item. If you're ever curious about all the things that go into the budget, he can show you that. So please, when he sends that meeting invite, take him up on it.
Happy budget season.
Yes.
Any questions?
Yeah, may I ask for the all committee notes? There are a lot of questions were discussed, but there are no response provided. So some of the questions are a little bit out of context.
So I did have a conversation with Mr. Italiano. So I think I shared this with you when I spoke to you on the phone last night, that some of the questions there that has something to do with the budget, we don't have answers to yet because they're still working on it. I think I referred to one of the questions around the state aid. The state aid is taken into account. I mentioned that in my remarks. Another example is like what is the anticipated tax levy raise? We don't know that yet. Again, all of these budget questions are on here. They're still working on the answers to because they're not done with finalizing the budget. I also shared with Mr. Italiano for future reference if we do have questions that are brought up at OFF, they'd be part of our notes so that you can see them.
Yeah, that would be really great. Thank you. Another one I know we also talked about last time in the auditor report is the facility spending hikes. So in J19, there are some ones I appreciate you mentioned about because of the kindergarten in 2023. So there's some facility spending on that. But there's one in village which doesn't quite make sense there. So if we can follow up next time, that would be great.
I did email Mr. Italiano and Superintendent McLaughlin after I spoke with you last night, going through the 3 questions that you had given me a week or 2 ago. That plus, what was the other one?
The
facilities, the head count. Mr. Italiano has that, and he will have an answer for you hopefully in the next couple of weeks.
Oh, don't worry, you can wait for the next business meeting.
But I shared with him.
Yeah. I think talk to the public is more important.
Okay, I just have a small question. Thank you for opportunity for us to come and see you to understand the budget.
Sure.
Really appreciate that because I'm very interested in learning budget process also. My question is, would we just get the presentation from you or with you, or do we get the reports as a backup to see like where we're standing, what we're asking from each department? Like say, for example, for special ed, I'm just giving an example of special ed. If special ed budget is say whatever the number, will there be a backup paper to support that?
I understand your question. So the presentation that we're talking about bringing the board members in, it's going to be collecting all the information and showing you what the bottom line is, going into the detail that the budget managers provided each of us to kind of make the day-to-day decisions. I'm not going to share that with everybody because those are the things that the superintendent, myself, or cabinet went through to kind of make the choices. We'll give you an overview of what we did, but we're not going to share like every single quotation, every single request. Really, at the end of the day, there's many hard decisions to make, and we'll show you what they were, how we got there, but that level of detail, there's not enough time in the day to do that.
And are you able to share the trend information, like compared to last year? They were asking this, they're spending with this, and this year they're asking this.
That's a good question. I actually look at 5 years worth of data to do it. When you come in, I think as Cookie attested to, I was with her for almost 3 hours. When you come in to meet with me and I'm presenting on the screen and I show you what goes into what I'm doing, in that forum I could answer many more questions than I can in a public board meeting, so I think you'll leave satisfied.
There was mention of policy and regulation 7510, which is the facilities use, which I think Damien also had mentioned that's part of strategic planning. Just wanting to know if there's anything that you'd like me to help with in terms of policy chair and policy committee, bringing that forth further update.
I basically started talking about it at our first meeting with the new
Very
group.
high level.
And there's a lot of work to do on that one.
So at some point, we'll see we'll do something.
I'll be honest, there's a lot of work involved to do that. It's not very advantageous to the board like right now, but we want to be a good partner to the town. So there's a lot of collaboration and thought to try to be a good partner, but look out for the district at first and foremost. So honestly, that's probably a project that's going to happen after the budget's put together, and then that's kind of like on the forefront after the budget season's over.
I think it's also a review of, the cost of renting out our spaces and whether it still makes sense for the district and what that would look like if we change it. So it's conversations that are still going to happen in the next couple of months.
Updates definitely need to be made, and it probably hasn't been looked at for a little while.
It looked like 2021.
There hasn't been a lot of consistency in my chair either. Some of those prices, they're outdated, so we need to update them. So we're not winning with that right now.
So
I'll be very honest.
Typically with policies, when stress estimate tells us, oh, these are the updates by the law, we do have the department that it would go with, look at it first, if there's anything that they, take a look at it before we even bring it to policy, because then I'll bring, athletics said this, and there's these different choices, and give reasons why they thought that. The same thing with cultural facilities would go through OFF first, the current one, because there's no new one coming out with the law, so it would just be us changing our regulation is usually what it would be, because that's what delineates our fees and our structures and our procedures for facility use. So, and then it'll.
Ms. Mina, I'm going to give you the information that you want to know. In the regulation for 7510, everything we get is from Strauss Estimate, like Ms. McLaughlin said. The rates in the regulation for 7510 are significantly outdated, and that's the part that needs to get updated that we have control over.
Right. No, I get it. I'm just saying, okay, I saw a policy in the OFF notes. Is there anything that I need to do as policy chair to make sure that we're moving moving that forward on a month, that's all, yeah. no-
It's coming.
Any other questions? Hearing none, thank you, Board Member Franklin Herman. And a nice segue into Policy and Communications Committee, VP Spina.
The Policy and Communications Committee met virtually on Wednesday, February 18th, to discuss the 3 policies and corresponding regulations that are up for adoption this evening. The new regulation and policy number 2535 on library materials, which provides language ensuring compliance with the passage of the Freedom to Read Act, was discussed at the January PCC meeting. Continued talks at the February meeting focused on the updates to the affiliated regulations and policies, number 2530 pertaining to resource materials, and number 9130 pertaining to public complaints, which were both updated to address shared language and reference to policy number 2535. Committee members had a discussion about the scope and intent of some language changes and the delineation of responsibilities to ensure that the guidance from the state is adhered to. It is the recommendation of the superintendent, as well as the members of the policy committee, that the board move to suspend bylaw 0131 this evening for the adoption of the 3 aforementioned policies with 1 reading only based on new legislation and the comprehensive updates provided. The remainder of the meeting time was yielded to the superintendent, who provided the committee with a comprehensive update on the current findings of the K through 4 feasibility study that the district has been engaged in. We look forward to continued updates and information throughout the spring into this deep dive into structural changes that could improve outcomes for our youngest learners. Any questions?
Any questions? Hearing none, thank you, VP Spina. Human Resources Committee met on Friday, February 9th, 2026, virtually. The committee reviewed the draft personnel agenda and addressed any related questions. Administration noted that revised salary information will be incorporated and the final agenda will reflect these updates as item 4.1 in tonight's agenda. The committee also discussed recommended adjustments for unaffiliated staff for the 2025-2026 school year based on recent contract negotiations. Historically, unaffiliated staff increases have mirrored negotiated agreements with bargaining units. Committee also discussed the implementation of the APSMT voluntary sick leave bank that was previously approved by the board. The structure was modeled after the MTEA sick bank, with consideration given to whether the board or administration should serve in a decision-making capacity. To ensure efficiency while maintaining oversight, a process was discussed whereby administration would coordinate the review process and provide relevant documentation to the committee for review and decision-making. Committee also reviewed a recommendation for a 3.5 increase for 3 leadership positions within the SOAR summer program. SOAR operates as an enterprise account and is self-funded. The proposed increase has been budgeted within the SOAR account and would not impact general district funds. The recommendation reflects that these positions have not received increases in several years. Related to that, additional discussion also included possibly providing program transportation, as that is not currently in use, so that is something that will be looked at. Lastly, Superintendent McLaughlin talked about the K through K4 feasibility study. She provided updates on the study, said that work is underway to identify essential budgetary needs related to potential implementation, including facilities and operational considerations. Communication with staff has begun through faculty meetings. If the district proceeds, a structured implementation committee similar to the full-day kindergarten rollout would be established. Any potential change will be targeted for the 2027-2028 school year, not 2026-2027. Any questions?
I have a question for the SOAR program. How much revenue does the SOAR program generate over the summer?
Well, off the top of my head, I don't know. But if you email me your question, we can get back to you timely.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm asking about that because you mentioned about the increase to award to thank the teachers' leadership too. And as we heard last year from here, I believe the public made the comments about the math algebra 2 priced at $1,500, but the position filled in within 30 minutes. So it seems there's a lot of student needs there. And some students even say, well, it's because the slot is limited, it's gone immediately. How can we, support students and support the community? That's the question I want we as together to think about that.
So just give me a synopsis of your actual question so we can go to the right person.
What?
Your
Do you
actual,
want me to repeat my question?
yes, your actual questions. Is one is about the revenue for last year?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. The revenue of the SOAP program generated over the summer. The second is last year the program filled in pretty fast. There's a strong student needs there, and what we're going to do to address that needs. And also associated with that, how do we address the student needs if so many students want to sign up for the courses, but the limited space. And also it's about the equity issue too, as I mentioned, like all the students can't pay that $1,500.
From my understanding, there are funds available for students that cannot afford to pay, so there are scholarships.
Yes. Oh, okay. But yeah, of course that, and also I did hear families talk about in the summertime they want to value the prioritize the family value. So that too is, are we able to provide that at regular school days beyond of course offering this learning opportunity during the summer too.
Any other questions?
Are you suggesting anything with your question? Are you saying that we need additional class in the SOAP program for mathematics, algebra? Is that what you're trying to say?
So I think, for example, I heard from Hopewell parents, not every year, students who are at that ability level will have a chance to take that advanced course. But some, if they meet their at the ability level, they will offer that learning opportunity with the next senior cohort together to learn. Then they don't have to pay out of pocket during the summertime, or even though it's great to hear that we school do have funds available to support the students who cannot afford that. But also their families, they value family time over the summer, and if the students are ready to learn, are we able to provide that learning opportunity to our Monty students, similar to other neighboring school districts? And the parents in other school districts did say those learning opportunities may not, always available for each cohort because teacher will evaluate based on student performance. That's what I mentioned in the past about the ceiling effect. It's not using the national percentile, it's using their local percentile. And teachers, of course, they know what they're doing. I fully trust their expertise. Is what I mentioned here is this learning opportunity, if it exists in other school districts, should we, our school district, also offer such a learning opportunity to support, the student who are at that ability level?
So
All of SOAR is elective, correct?
yeah, and that's what I want to clarify. So that's,
Yeah.
if I'm reading or listening to your question correctly, that's not a SOAR issue. You're talking about additional learning classes during the school year. Is that?
Yes.
Okay, so that's not a SOAR question. That's not a HRC question. That would be an ACI question.
No, okay, refer back to ACI.
Thank you. Any other questions?
But there's one question related to the SOAR program is if that position filled in so fast, right? Would they consider more sections then? Right? That's related to SOAR program.
Yes, yeah, thank you. VP Sweet. I'm sorry. VP Speed.
I just wanted to make a comment that I also support the idea of having a SICPIC committee in the same way that we have for MTEA for APSA.
Thank you. Any other questions? Hearing none, we do not have any correspondence to the board, so at this time I will entertain a motion to adjourn to executive session.
So moved. Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to adjourn to executive session. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none. Mr. Italiano.
All in favor?
All in favor.
Aye. Opposed, abstentions?
Same right.
Okay, thank you.
We're now in executive session. We will try to be brief and efficient. All right, at this time, I entertain a motion to reconvene in open session.
So moved.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to reconvene in open session. Any questions on the motion? Roll call, please, Mr. Caliano.
Dr. Wang?
Here.
Ms. Pfeffer?
Yes.
Spina?
Yes.
Franca Harmon?
Present.
Warland?
Present.
Mr. Nunez?
Present.
Ms. Nargan?
Yes.
Mr. Todd?
Yes.
Thank you.
We have a quorum. At this time, I entertain a motion to approve the executive session minutes of January 27, 2026, and the business meeting minutes of January 27, 2026. Is there a motion?
Second.
It's been properly moved and second to approve those minutes. Any questions on the minutes or the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor state aye. Aye. All those opposed, same right. Any abstentions? Hearing none. Action agenda items, public comments. The Board of Education welcomes and encourages input from the public. Members of the public are allotted one opportunity to address the board regarding the action agenda items only for up to a maximum of 3 minutes per speaker. All comments must be directed to the board. Before you make your comment, please state your full name and address and enter both on the Chromebook provided. Being mindful of privacy rights regarding students, board employees, and board members, and to avoid any liability on the part of the speaker, the board discourages defamatory and discourteous remarks. The public comment portions of the meeting are not structured as question and answer sessions, but rather are offered as opportunities for the public to share their thoughts with the board. The board may need to refer an issue to their superintendent if the issue has not been handled through the appropriate chain of command, usually starting at the school level. Responses may be provided at the end of this session. Any public comments on the action agenda items? Going once, going twice. Public comments are now closed. At this time, I entertain a motion to adopt action agenda items 1.1 through 4.1.
So moved. Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to adopt agenda items 1.1 through 4.1. Any questions on the motion? What is your question?
This is for the Chromebooks we're getting for fifth graders, and I just wanted to know, what is that LMS one-to-one program? What does that mean?
So, not being like the person that's in charge of that building or the technology director, I'm going to take my best shot at it. It's a one-to-one initiative for the lower middle school, and these units are for anybody that's in fifth grade or starts in that building that's a fifth grade or like older student. That put you on the spot. Was I accurate or did I miss anything?
The students get them in fifth grade, they keep them until eighth grade.
Right,
So
through middle school.
It follows them through the 4-year program.
And then we repurpose them for testing.
For testing.
And then we repurpose them for testing. Thank you very much. And so every year we buy the fifth grade a brand new device that follows them for 4 years. And so it creates a refresh cycle.
And thank you so much for offering the insurance that you offer, because honestly, I say every parent out there take this insurance.
Absolutely.
I have one kid that uses it every single year, at least twice, and then I still have to buy.
So that was my next question actually. So we do make parents take the insurance.
Don't make it. We give them the option for low cost insurance.
$30, right? Yeah.
It's
Well, it was 30, it went to 35 this year. As
Okay,
prices
it's
go
fine,
up.
it's still
And we may need to adjust again next year because of tariffs, driving prices. But we stay competitive to other districts.
$40 still work.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks.
And white glove, what is that?
I'm sorry?
$7.50 each Chromebook. It says white glove.
Oh, are you looking at the quotation?
Yeah.
I don't have the quotation in front of me.
I can explain
That's
it.
a
So
service.
we buy the Chromebook itself, we buy the Google license, the Google Workplace license. We buy white gloving and asset tagging. What white glove enrollment and asset tagging is they unbox and enter the device into our domain, at their facility, they put a nice asset tag that we can scan them in and out.
That's right.
So it's all like tech business stuff. Yep.
So when we get it, it's ready to go.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Yeah, I also have a question to that agenda item too.
What number?
The same, the Chromebooks, yes. The question is, with this funding, I remember during pandemic, Andrew mentioned it was funded by federal funding right now. So after that ends, right now our school district have to pay out of the general fund.
So when the ARP ESSER funding ended, like a couple of years ago, yes, like it is. This year's a budgeted item. So, and it was quoted out correctly through a cooperative. And it's something that we do here year after year. All the districts were fortunate enough to get that paid for through whatever you want to call it, like the American Rescue Plan is what the technical name was of like the COVID grant, and when that expired, if that's your initiative, the taxpayers of the local budget pay for it if that money expired.
So this is our first year right now comes from the general fund.
No, that the ARP ESSER money ended years ago.
It was only like 2
That's been gone for about this is probably like the third cycle that's been gone.
So basically every year we have to purchase 400 Chromebook tablets for each cohort.
Give or take, yes.
Like 300 and something, and then as these little ones keep moving in, it's going to be less.
It depends on the enrollment, but like right now, like in real time, that's where we are.
Did you find that there was a significant cost increase from last year to this year?
On the price of the units, there was. They're up about 35%. And that's with using the source, that's with using the cooperative.
Yeah.
That had nothing to do with us getting a higher end unit or doing anything wrong. That's with us doing it the right way.
Can I just make a comment though? This is actually, it's a great service for parents though, because now you don't have to worry about getting your child a computer, right?
Correct.
You're getting something that meets their needs.
That's a cost savings.
Exactly, you're leveraging that. So it is, you're gonna have to get them a computer anyway.
Absolutely.
It's not, hey, go out and get them the right type of computer. No, here, you're getting the white glove, the right software in it, it's good to go, you open it. And the parents are gonna pay for it either directly or indirectly, so it's.
And there's security on it.
Exactly, so it's a great service that we're offering.
That's an excellent point. It's loaded, it has the right software, it's a durable material, and it takes the pressure off you folks of having to be responsible for doing that, so.
That's a great point.
And it's cheaper than you could buy it for privately.
That's a great point.
Well, I'm sorry, I may have a slightly different opinion towards the educational technology part. I just don't think like we need to send more money to educational technology company. Because recently I was reading an interview from Dr. Jared Cooney-Hoffman. He was a former teacher and turned into cognitive neuroscientist who focused on human learning. He was giving a speech about when technology enters education, learning goes down, and how the screen time, the time hurts kids' cognitive development. And there's another NBC News shares report about parents are opting kids out of school-based Chromebooks and iPads, returning to pen and paper. And also, if you read international news, you will notice in some European countries, they actually turned into pencil and paper learning mode. We're talking about a 5th grader here. I know in Montgomery, we classify them as lower middle schoolers. But in some other school districts, they're still part of elementary. So they're considered elementary kids. So that's why I'm sharing. I think I share slightly different, opinion on this discussion. It's about the Chromebooks, offering Chromebooks one-on-one for 5th graders.
Thank you.
I think lots of us do share that opinion, though, about technology being overused in schools and needing more pen and pencil. Absolutely.
But we still need them, it's still
We
part
do.
of like
We
the
do.
modern age.
Any other questions on the motion?
I actually have a much more prosaic question about the Staples Chromebooks hot topic. It says 5th graders / new students to LMS. Does that also include new students to UMS, 7th and 8th graders who would also need a one-to-one device?
I can explain.
You can answer, Mr. Brooks, if you'd like.
We purchase a specific model each year's fleet, and as that grade moves up, these devices need to be available for them, all the people that move into that grade. So right now we're buying for the fifth graders that start in September, but we're also buying for next year's sixth graders that come into the district, the following year's seventh graders that come into the district. So we're actually forecasting a larger number than just our existing. And then we're also buying some devices for the devices that become total fails, total losses. So as we don't have one student that has a different device from the fleet, so there's
So across the grade, every student has the same model.
Correct. So if you looked at all of our 8th graders right now that received this model in 5th grade, we bought enough to support them through the 4 years.
Thank you for explaining that.
No problem. It's my pleasure.
What do we do with the old Chromebooks?
So old Chromebooks, when they reach their end of life, need to be recycled because they can no longer receive an operating system update that allows them to be secure. We get a couple more years after they exit the 8th grade program where we use them for testing devices for our high school. And also, they feed our one-to-one carts at our elementaries. So there's sort of a whole life to our devices. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks.
Thank you for asking.
You were meant to be here tonight. So thank you. We appreciate you.
I will.
We appreciate you.
Behind the camera.
Yes. Any other questions on the motion?
So I know we're make the agenda say purchase this for 5th graders. Is it possible we defer this question to ACI, say, can we, offer this later than 5th graders to upper middle schoolers? Do we really is there a necessary need, urgent need to start for 5th graders? Can 5th graders follow the mode learning mode like 4th graders?
Not for right now.
This resolution is going to stay on the agenda. If you want to bring that up in ACI for the future, that's fine.
Any other questions on the motion? Hearing none. Roll call, please, Mr. Shaliano.
Before the roll call, I'm just going to make a note. I emailed the board earlier. This is reflected on the public agenda on the table. Item 3.15, the price for that quote is $39,900. If you didn't get a chance to see the email, that's why I'm letting everybody know right now. Any questions on that?
And so what was the original, that contract was there, 75?
Yep, there was a typo. That's why I'm correcting it right now.
Oh, so it's, okay, the ceiling replacement, would that has it?
No, that wasn't. I emailed everybody earlier. This is the $39,000 is to do DOE paperwork by the architect for a rod grant. The ceiling was a mistake. I made the mistake. I emailed everybody earlier. I didn't see any replies back. I'm just kind of publicly giving you the chance in case you didn't get to check your email while you were at work today.
So 3.15, the correct number is $39,900.
That's correct.
And the contractor is not that PSA, right?
Yes, it's them. There is two, basically I received 2 quotes right before the agenda went out. I put the wrong one on.
Thank you.
Andrew, I just have one comment about the upholstery on the chairs in the auditorium.
Yep.
We are not.
Go ahead.
We are not changing all the chairs, right? We are only repairing the ones which are.
Believe it or not, that's a staggered plan that I've worked with the director of facilities. You have a lot of chairs that are outdated and the carpet's outdated in there, and we can't change them all at once. And that's only to change the upholstery on the seating that's in really bad condition. We did it last year in the spring, and I'm doing it this year, and I have a little bit in the budget next year to kind of spread that cost over multi-years, but to keep your performance center as good as we can.
And that's something that's been discussed for years, probably since I've been on the board.
Yeah. And are we going to do the ceiling replacement at UMS or not at all?
I pulled that off because I needed more details from the director of operations on that.
All right, roll call, please, Mr. Shaliano.
Dr. Wang?
So I will abstain 3.14 and yes to everything else.
Noted. Thank you. Ms. Pfeffer?
Yes.
Spina?
Yes.
Dr. Herman?
Yes.
Ms. Warland?
Yes.
Mr. Nunez?
Yes.
Ms. Nargon?
Yes.
Mr. Todd?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion's carried.
Thank you. New business from public. The Board of Education welcomes and encourages input from the public. Members of the public are allotted one opportunity to bring any new business to the board for up to a maximum of 3 minutes per speaker. All comments must be directed to the board. Before you make your comment, please state your full name and address and enter both on the Chromebook provided. Being mindful of privacy rights regarding students, board employees, and board members, and to avoid any potential liability on the part of the speaker, the board discourages defamatory and discourteous remarks. The public comment portions of the meeting are not structured as question and answer session. The board may need to refer an issue to the superintendent if the issue has not been handled through the appropriate chain of command, usually started at the school level. Responses may be provided at the end of this session. Any public comments? Going once, going twice. Public comments is now closed. Any closing items for board members?
I think I have, earlier, Julie mentioned a good question about the K-4 restructuring, because as we all know, this the whole committee, basically through every committee, we discuss about this topic. So I'm not sure if Mary is ready to share, or you want to hold this topic.
Yep. I would like to finish more of the feasibility with the finances before we share anything.
Okay, thank you.
Any other items? Hearing none, at this time I entertain a motion to adjourn. Been properly moved and seconded to adjourn. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say right. Abstentions? We stand adjourned. Thank you for those who hung in there. We appreciate you. Everybody get home safe. Thank you.